My friends, come closer now, not in body, but in feeling. There is nothing you must do in this moment. No effort is required of you, no decision, no struggle, no fixing of anything at all. If you have come here with a restless mind, with a heart that feels heavy, with thoughts that keep circling the same questions again and again, I want you to know something at the very beginning. Nothing has gone wrong. You have not failed. You are not behind. You are not late. You are simply tired. And tiredness has a way of making life appear far more difficult than it truly is. I have observed this in myself and in countless others over many years. When the mind is strained, when the imagination is misused, life feels like a burden that must be carried rather than a current that carries you. And from that state, people begin to worry. They worry about outcomes, about timing, about whether something will ever change. They worry because they believe that if they stop worrying, everything will fall apart. But I tell you this, with the calm assurance of one who has tested this law again and again, worry is the greatest misuse of imagination. Worry is not care. Worry is not responsibility. Worry is imagination turned against itself. When you worry, you are not solving anything. You are rehearsing an outcome you do not desire. You are using the same creative power that shapes reality, but you are shaping shadows instead of substance. And then you wonder why life feels heavy, resistant, slow. The mind, when left unchecked, believes every problem must be attacked, analyzed, wrestled into submission. It sees a difficulty and immediately calls it an enemy, something to overcome, something to fix, something that stands in the way of peace. But the problem is never the enemy. The problem is a shadow. A shadow has no life of its own. It only appears because something stands between the light and its full expression. And when you stop fighting the shadow, when you stop trying to grab it or erase it with effort, you naturally turn toward the source of light, and the shadow dissolves without struggle. This is true of every difficulty you face. Nothing in your life is asking you to strain harder, think faster, or control more. Life does not unfold through force. It unfolds through alignment. And alignment is not something you achieve by effort. Alignment happens when you stop resisting what already knows how to move. I want you to hear this gently, because it is easy to misunderstand. Nothing is solved through effort alone. Effort without inner rest only creates more tension. Only the appearance of progress. Only movement without direction. Everything is resolved through inner rest. Rest is not weakness. Rest is not passivity. Rest is trust embodied. When the mind rests, imagination returns to its rightful function. It stops inventing fears and begins receiving solutions. It stops asking, "How will this work?" and quietly assumes it is already working. You were never meant to fix life. Life does not need fixing. Life needs permission. You are here not to repair the universe, but to allow it to rearrange itself once you stop interfering with fear and control. The universe, or if you prefer, the deeper order of being, does not require your anxiety. It does not respond to panic. It responds to acceptance. And acceptance is born in stillness. That is why you have come here now. Perhaps without fully knowing why. Perhaps you only knew that you were tired. Perhaps you felt the need to hear a voice that does not rush you, that does not demand action, that does not tell you to improve yourself or become something else. You do not need to become anything. You need to remember something. You need to remember that when you rest, life moves. When you stop worrying, solutions surface. When you let go of resistance, order reveals itself. Now, before I go any further, I want you to do something that may feel simple, but it is not small. I want you to declare it publicly. Because the moment you declare a thing, you fix it within yourself. You cease to be a wanderer, and you become a receiver. So comment these exact words beneath this talk. Do not change them. Write them as they are. I'm ready to receive. Comment it now, not later. Let it be your decision made visible. And then listen, because what you are about to hear only works for the one who is willing to receive. You see, there is a great difference between hearing words and allowing them to enter you. Many listen with the mind, evaluating, comparing, questioning. But the one who receives listens with the heart, with the body, with the imagination, relaxed and open. As you listen now, I invite you to stop trying to understand everything. Understanding will come later. Right now, your only task is to rest, to let these words wash over you like a gentle current, carrying you rather than asking you to swim. If your eyes are open, they may close naturally. If your breath is shallow, it may deepen on its own. If your thoughts drift, let them drift. There is nothing you must hold on to. The night has a wisdom. The day often forgets. In sleep, the body releases control. The mind loosens its grip. And in that state, the deeper self speaks clearly. This is why I say that what you hear as you fall asleep does not remain on the surface. It sinks, it impresses, it takes root. Tonight is not about effort. It is about permission. Permission for life to do what it has always done best when left undisturbed. Permission for the unseen order to move the pieces you could never move with reason alone. Permission for the imagination to return to its natural function, not to worry, but to create. As you rest here, listening, remember this truth and let it soften you. You are not here to fix life. You are here to let life rearrange itself once you stop resisting it. Remain with me now, gently, without expectation. There is nothing you need to force. Everything that needs to happen already knows the way. I want to speak to you in a way that does not depend upon whether your eyes are open or closed, whether you are fully awake or already drifting into sleep. For there is a listener in you deeper than the reasoning mind. There is a hearer that never slumbers. And so I say this plainly, and I say it with tenderness. Even if you fall asleep while I speak, I am still speaking to you. I am speaking to your subconscious. It receives without argument. It listens without strain. It accepts the tone, the feeling, the mood behind the words. And it does not require your effort to understand. It only requires your permission to receive. So whether you are awake, half awake, or deeply asleep, know this: you are hearing me. And what you hear now will sink into you as naturally as the night sinks into the earth. Now let us go gently into the next truth, the one that so many have been trained away from since childhood. There is a common belief, almost universal, that if something is not yet resolved, it must be forced into resolution. That if your life is not yet what you desire it to be, then you must do more, think more, plan more, struggle more. The world praises the one who strains. It applauds the one who exhausts himself. It calls him responsible, diligent, worthy. And so you have been taught, quietly, steadily, year after year, that peace must be earned by effort. But my friends, that teaching is not wisdom, it is conditioning. You have not been wrong. You have been misled. You have been trained to believe that effort is the cause of life's movement, as though existence were a stubborn door that only opens when you push hard enough. Yet you already know, if you look honestly, that the most important things in life do not yield to force. You cannot force sleep. The more you try, the further it seems to go. Sleep comes when you stop chasing it. It comes when the body relaxes, when the mind releases its grip, when you allow the natural rhythm to take you. You cannot force the seed to sprout by pulling at the soil. You cannot command the earth to hurry. The seed grows in darkness, in stillness, in silence. It moves according to an order that is invisible to the eye, yet perfectly dependable. And so it is with your life. There is an invisible order at work, call it what you will, an order that knows how to bring about the very things you desire when you stop interfering with fear, doubt, and constant supervision. The tragedy is not that you lack power. The tragedy is that you have been taught to misuse power. You have been taught to believe that your mind must constantly manage life, anticipate every possible danger, prepare for every possible disappointment, and rehearse every possible failure in the name of being realistic. But what you call realism is often nothing more than practiced fear. And what is planning, when it is born from fear? It is worry wearing respectable clothing. It is the same restless energy, merely disguised. It says, if I can just foresee every outcome, then I will be safe. Yet safety never comes from foresight. Safety comes from inner certainty. You may plan the day from morning to night, and still the unexpected arrives. You may anticipate disaster for weeks, and nothing happens. Or you may anticipate nothing at all, and life changes in a single hour. This should teach you something. The outer world does not obey your anxious calculations. It obeys states. It obeys what you are being within yourself. Many people live as though life were a machine that must be operated by constant effort. And when they are faced with a problem, they do not go within. They go outward. They reach for more control, more doing, more struggling, more frantic movement. They fill their mind with questions that have no answer. What if it doesn't work? What if it gets worse? What if I miss my chance? What if I've already ruined it? And each what if is not innocent. Each what if is a seed, and the soil in which it is planted is the subconscious. So it grows, quietly, faithfully. It bears fruit in due season. Then people say, you see, I knew it would happen. Yes, because you planted it. But listen closely. This is not said to burden you, it is said to free you. If you have planted fear before, you can plant peace now. If you have rehearsed disaster, you can rehearse deliverance. If you have been trained to anticipate heartbreak, you can be trained to anticipate harmony. The reason this is possible is because life is not moved by force. Life is moved by consciousness, and consciousness does not respond to effort. It responds to assumption. There is a quiet arrogance in worry that most never notice. Worry suggests that the vast intelligence that governs the seasons, that turns night into day, that draws the tides and holds the stars in their places, is somehow incapable of arranging the details of your life. So the worried man says, I must handle it. I must figure it out. I must keep it in my mind, or it will be lost. And yet, the very breath in your chest is not produced by your planning. It is given. It is sustained. You do not manage your heartbeat with thought. You do not command the blood to move, and still it moves with perfect order. So why do you assume that the same order cannot govern your affairs? Because you have been taught to worship effort. You have been taught that if you are not anxious, you are careless. That if you are not striving, you are lazy. That if you are not constantly pushing, you will fall behind. But those are not truths. Those are habits. And habits can be changed. I tell you, the deepest transformations come when you stop pushing at the surface and begin consenting within. When you stop trying to wrestle the shadow and instead return to the light that casts it. When you stop standing over the soil, demanding proof, and instead allow the seed to remain planted in peace. There is a certain sweetness to the night because the night does not argue. The night does not demand evidence. The night simply receives. It covers the earth and allows the hidden work to be done. And that is what I am inviting you to do, to become like the night. Not ignorant, but receptive. Not passive, but trusting. Not resigned, but surrendered. The kind of surrender that is strength. You see, effort can build a house, but effort cannot build a state. Effort can move furniture from one room to another, but effort cannot move you into a new inner identity. Only assumption can do that. Only acceptance. Only the quiet decision that says, this is who I am now. This is what is true now. When you are still, you hear what you could never hear in strain. When you are quiet, you feel what you could never feel in panic. When you relax, the invisible order, the very thing you have been interrupting with constant worry, begins to show itself. You do not see the seed breaking open. You do not watch the roots forming. And yet, if the seed is true, the tree is inevitable. So it is with the imaginal act. So it is with the inner acceptance of your wish fulfilled. You do not need to watch every step. You do not need to supervise the unfolding. You only need to plant the end and allow the means to appear. This is where the human mind protests. It says, but I must do something. Yes, You must do something, but not what you have been trained to do. You must do the only thing that truly changes anything. You must change your inner position. If you are lying in bed tonight and you feel the weight of some concern, money, health, family, time, the future, I ask you to notice how the mind tries to solve it. It tries to run ahead. It tries to calculate. It tries to protect you by imagining all the ways it could go wrong. And it calls that protection. But it is not protection. It is preparation for sorrow. And you have rehearsed sorrow long enough. What if, instead, you prepared for peace? What if you began to anticipate in the same way you have anticipated trouble, but you anticipated grace? You anticipated the solution. You anticipated the unexpected kindness, the door opening, the burden lifting, the message arriving, the right moment presenting itself. The mind will say, but that is foolish. No, my friends, that is faithful. Because the subconscious does not produce according to what is reasonable. It produces according to what is impressed. And so I speak again to your subconscious now. Whether you are awake or asleep, you are safe to let go. You are safe to stop scanning the horizon for danger. You are safe to relax your grip on life. Life does not move because you push it. It moves when you stop standing in the way. That is not poetry. That is law. The river does not need your effort to flow. It only needs you to stop throwing stones into it and then wondering why it is turbulent. The moment you stop disturbing it, it becomes clear. It becomes smooth. It carries you. This is how the unseen order works. It carries you when you consent. It rearranges your world when you stop resisting it with anxious thought. And if you ask me, Neville, how do I stop resisting? I will tell you gently, you stop by choosing the end, not the struggle, not the process, not the fear, the end. You stop by letting the last feeling in you tonight be not, how will it work, but it is already working. You stop by letting the final mood before sleep be not tension, but relief. And I promise you, not as a theory, but as a tested truth, when you do this, the invisible begins to move with astonishing precision. Things align without your forcing. The right idea appears without your straining. The right person enters without your chasing. The right opportunity comes without your begging. Because you were never meant to push life into order. You were meant to accept the order within yourself and let life reflect it. The word God carries a weight for many. For some it carries comfort. For others it carries fear. For others, disappointment. For others, memories of being told they were unworthy, or that life's pain was a punishment, or that they must beg a distant power for mercy. If you have known any of those feelings, do not resist them. Simply let them pass through you, like a breeze, moving through an open window. Nothing I say now is meant to disturb your peace. On the contrary, it is meant to restore it. When I speak of God, I am not speaking of a deity outside you, somewhere in the vastness of space, watching, judging, deciding whether you deserve relief. I am not speaking of a God who withholds, nor of a God who must be convinced. I am not speaking of a God who is absent until you call loudly enough. I speak of God as the only reality, and that reality is closer to you than breath. If you would understand what I mean, do not look outward. Do not search the sky. Do not search a distant place. Turn your attention inward, just for a moment, and notice the simple fact that you are aware. You are aware that you are. Before you name yourself, before you recall your history, before you think of your concerns, there is a bare awareness that quietly says, I am. That sense of being is not produced by effort. It is not earned. It simply is. It is the foundation upon which every thought, every feeling, every perception rests. And it is that, your awareness of being, that I call God. Now this may sound strange at first, because many have been taught that God is separate, that God is somewhere else. But separation is the great illusion that keeps man in bondage. For if God is outside, then you are forever a petitioner, forever pleading, forever waiting for permission to be whole. But if God is within, as your very awareness of being, then you are never outside the source. You are never cut off, you are never abandoned. You are not pleading with life. You are moving life from within yourself. This is why I have said for years that God is your own wonderful human imagination. Not imagination as idle fancy, not imagination as daydreaming, but imagination as the creative power that gives form to states and makes them visible in experience. Everything you call real was first accepted as real in consciousness. Every event, every circumstance, every condition is consciousness made visible. And when you begin to see this, you stop thinking of God as someone you must reach. You begin to understand that God is the very power by which you reach anything at all. You may ask, but Neville, if God is within me, why have I suffered? Why have I prayed and seen nothing? Because most prayer is not prayer at all. Most prayer, as it is practiced, is anxiety dressed in holy language. It is asking from the state of not having. It is pleading from the state of lack. It is begging from the assumption that the desire is not yet yours. And every time you do that, you impress upon yourself the state of absence. You may whisper beautiful words, but your feeling confesses, it is not mine. And the subconscious, this deep womb of creation, does not respond to the poetry of your lips. It responds to the state you occupy. So you ask, and you feel worse, because your very asking has become a repetition of the problem. Your prayer becomes the rehearsal of delay, and then you conclude that God has not heard you. But God has heard you perfectly. God, your consciousness, has accepted the state from which you prayed. It is important that you hear this softly, without condemnation. You were not wrong to desire. You were not wrong to hope. You were simply taught to pray in a way that keeps you in need. You were taught to treat God as though God were outside you, and therefore you were trained into endless waiting. But the truth is much kinder and much more powerful. God does not work in time. God works in states. Time is a sequence of events, but a state is a condition of consciousness, and the state is the cause. The events are only the effect. If you understand this, you will stop measuring your life by clocks and calendars, and you will begin measuring it by the only thing that truly matters, the state you are in when you fall asleep, the state you are in when you speak to yourself, the state you are in when no one is watching. The state is not an event. It is an identity. It is a mood of being. It is the quiet inner conviction that says, this is true of me. And God, the creative power, moves according to that conviction. So if you accept yourself as unsupported, life mirrors supportlessness. If you accept yourself as unloved, life mirrors that. If you accept yourself as struggling, life mirrors struggle, not because God is cruel, but because God is faithful. Faithful to your assumption, faithful to the state you have entered. Now here is the liberating truth. You do not need to persuade God. You only need to accept. There is a great difference between asking and accepting, and most never learn it. To ask is to declare that you do not have. To ask is to keep the desire at a distance. To ask is to bow before the appearance and say, this is reality, and I am trying to change it. But to accept is to move into possession inwardly. It is to let the state of the fulfilled desire become present within you. It is to claim the end quietly, without struggle, as though it were already done. And the moment you accept something inwardly, God has already moved. Not later, not someday, not after you have repeated it 1,000 times. In the very moment of acceptance, the state has been entered, and the world must eventually reflect it, because the world is only the outpicturing of states. This is why I tell you not to think of God as a distant power that might decide to help you. Think of God as the only power, your awareness of being moving into a new state and therefore producing a new world. You may say, but I cannot see it. Of course you cannot see it at once. The outer world is delayed. It is the record of past states. It shows you what you have been, not what you are becoming. It is like an echo. An echo does not occur at the same instant as the voice. There is always a slight delay. So when you accept a new state, do not look immediately to the world for proof. The world is still echoing yesterday. The proof is in the acceptance itself. The proof is in the quietness that follows. The proof is in the relief that begins to soften you. That relief is not imagination pretending. That relief is the sign that you have entered the state. And once you have entered it, the world must rearrange to confirm it. This is why the night is so precious. Because at night you can enter a state without the constant argument of the senses. In the stillness before sleep, you can accept the end more easily. You can stop looking for evidence. You can simply feel. And feeling is the language of the subconscious. So when I say God, I mean the one who feels, the one who assumes, the one who says, I am, and then gives that I am a new garment. If you say, I am anxious, you have clothed God in anxiety, and the world must reflect it. If you say, I am safe, you have clothed God in safety, and safety must become visible. It is not that God is punishing or rewarding you, it is that God is expressing what you have accepted as yourself. Now many fear this, because they think it means responsibility in a heavy sense. But it is not heavy, it is freeing, because it means you are not at the mercy of circumstance, chance, or the will of others. It means your world is not random, it is lawful. And if it is lawful, it can be changed, not by force, but by a change of state. This is why I speak in terms of I am. The name of God is not a word you speak to the sky. The name of God is the awareness you are using right now to listen to me. It is the very sense of being present, and what you attach to it becomes the truth of your life. So tonight, do not pray as one who begs. Do not pray as one who hopes. Do not pray as one who is trying to convince an outside power. Pray as one who accepts. If you desire peace, accept peace. If you desire relief, accept relief. If you desire a solution, accept the state of being solved. If you desire love, accept yourself as loved. Do not wait for the world to confirm it. The world will confirm it, because you have accepted it, not before. This acceptance is gentle. It is not strained. It is not loud. It does not argue with the facts. It simply withdraws attention from them and places attention on the unseen reality of the fulfilled desire. You may be thinking now, is it truly that simple? Yes. And because it is simple, most overlook it. They think power must be complicated. They think God must be distant. They think salvation must be earned. Yet the truth is always close, always quiet, always immediate. The moment you accept something inwardly, God has already moved. And if you can accept that, if you can let that be more than words, if you can let it become your inner knowing, then you will begin to sleep differently. You will begin to live differently. You will begin to react less and assume more. You will begin to feel the great burden lift, because you will no longer be trying to fix life from the outside. You will be allowing life to rearrange itself from within. And now, as you continue to listen, whether awake or drifting or already asleep, let these words sink deeper than thought. Let them become a quiet atmosphere in you. God is not outside you. God is your awareness of being. God does not work in time. God works in states. And the moment you accept something inwardly, God has already moved. Faith, as most have been taught to think of it, is little more than a strained effort of the mind. It is a kind of mental clenching. People imagine that faith means forcing themselves to believe something while every feeling in them denies it. They think faith is repeating words with tense lips, trying to drown out fear by volume. They think faith is waiting, waiting for a sign, waiting for permission, waiting for the world to finally agree. But that is not faith. That is fatigue. Faith is not the anxious attempt to believe. Faith is not the hope that tomorrow will be kinder. Faith is not the endless repetition of affirmations spoken like a charm, while the heart remains unconvinced. If there is strain in you, if there is desperation in you, if there is that restless sense of I must do more, I must fix this, I must make it happen, then you are not in faith, you are in effort. And effort, when it is born of fear, is simply worry with its sleeves rolled up. I want you to hear this quietly, because it changes the entire approach to life. Faith is rest, not the rest of indifference, not the rest of giving up, but the rest of inner certainty. Faith is the inner posture that says, "It is done," and then stops talking. Faith is the feeling of completion that does not need to argue with appearances. Faith is the calm acceptance of the wish fulfilled, held so gently and so naturally that it begins to feel like your own name. If you truly believed that a thing was already yours, would you strain? Would you beg? Would you repeat it in panic, as though you might lose it if you did not keep speaking? No. You would relax. You would breathe. You would move through your day with a quiet ease, not because you had proof in your hands, but because you had possession in your consciousness. That ease is faith. This is why I have always said that the great secret is not effort, but assumption. Not struggle, but the acceptance of a state. You do not fight your way into fulfillment. You enter it, you occupy it, you rest in it. The very word rest contains a mystery most never consider. Rest is the sign that you have ceased to doubt. Rest is the evidence that the inner act is complete. Rest is the seal placed upon a thing. Now, if you are listening to me in the evening, or if you are lying down already, I want you to notice something. The body knows how to rest, far better than the mind. The body will sigh and soften, and the mind will still attempt to hold on. The body will be ready to let go, and the mind will say, "But what about tomorrow? What about the outcome? What about the bills, the letter, the doctor, the relationship, the decision?" The mind tries to carry the future like a weight in its arms, and it calls that responsibility. But the truth is, the future is not carried by your anxious mind. The future is shaped by your state, and your state, if you would learn to master it, must be entered in rest. I have watched people exhaust themselves in the name of faith. They do not know they are exhausting themselves, because their exhaustion is familiar. They have lived so long in tension that tension feels normal. And when they try to manifest, they simply add more tension to the same old pattern. They try to believe harder. They try to visualize longer. They try to repeat words more intensely. And then they wonder why nothing moves. It is like trying to smooth water with your hands. The more you slap the surface, the more turbulent it becomes. The power that creates does not respond to turbulence. It responds to stillness. A lake reflects the sky only when it is calm. And in the same way, your world reflects your chosen state only when you are no longer shaking the inner waters with worry. This is why rest is not a luxury. Rest is a creative act. Rest is the moment you stop interfering with the law. If you wish to understand this in the simplest way, consider sleep itself. Sleep is the ultimate act of trust. Every night you lay your body down and you surrender control. You do not hold your eyes open to ensure the world continues. You do not keep your heart beating by will. You do not instruct the lungs to breathe. You let go. And something greater than your conscious management carries you through the night and brings you safely into morning. Sleep, then, is a confession. It is the body saying, "I trust life." And if the body can trust life with something as precious as consciousness itself, if you can surrender to sleep and awaken again, then you can trust life with the details of your desire. You can trust life with the unfolding. You can trust the unseen order with the means. You can rest. This is the axis of the entire teaching. The one who rests is the one who has accepted. The one who accepts is the one who has moved into the end. The one who has moved into the end has already set the law in motion. And the law once set in motion does not require anxious supervision. It requires the one thing most people refuse to give it, permission to unfold. So I say to you tonight, do not make faith into labor. Do not make prayer into strain. The truest prayer is not the one spoken with trembling lips, but the one accepted with a quiet heart. The moment you feel relief, real relief, not forced relief, the moment you feel that gentle loosening inside, as though a burden has lifted, you have touched the state. And when you touch the state, the unseen begins to arrange the scene. Now you may ask, but Neville, how do I rest when the evidence is frightening? You rest by understanding what evidence is. Evidence is not the cause. Evidence is the echo. Evidence is yesterday's assumption made visible today. It is the printout of a past state. If you treat it as final, you remain chained to the past. But if you understand it as a shadow, you can stop giving it your life. You do not deny the shadow by fighting it. You deny it by withdrawing belief from it. You let it be there, and you simply refuse to bow. And you do not bow by the simplest act of all. You rest in a new assumption. This is not stubbornness. This is not pretended courage. This is not wearing a mask. It is a change of inner position. It is a quiet inward movement from I am trying to it is done. And that movement is felt as rest. Rest is the sign that you have stopped asking as a beggar. To ask as a beggar is to say, I do not have. To ask as a beggar is to remain outside the door. But to accept is to step inside. To accept is to sit down. To accept is to remove your coat, to loosen the belt, to breathe, to live as though you belong there. That belongingness, when it is felt, is the end. This is why I tell you that the most powerful moments are often the quietest. People think power must be dramatic. They think the moment of change will feel like thunder. But the real moment of change feels like peace. It feels like a settling. It feels like the mind finally stopping its argument. It feels like the body releasing a tension it has carried for so long that it forgot it could let go. And so, if you are listening now, and you feel yourself becoming slower, softer, heavier, you are not drifting away from the teaching. You are moving into it, you are allowing it to become part of you. For the subconscious accepts what the conscious mind, in its quietness, consents to. The drowsy state is not an obstacle. It is the doorway. It is the place where effort fades and acceptance becomes easy. That is why the while you sleep of this message is not merely a phrase. It is a principle. When you sleep, you stop interfering. When you sleep, you stop looking for proof. When you sleep, you stop arguing with life. And in that absence of interference, the seed you plant takes root. You see, the seed does not grow because you stare at the soil. It grows because you leave it alone long enough for life to do what life does. The seed needs darkness. The seed needs quiet. The seed needs that protected space where it is not constantly disturbed by doubt. That is the value of sleep. It is the protected chamber of creation. So I want you to begin to associate rest with receiving. Rest is not losing time. Rest is not falling behind. Rest is the act of opening. It is the act of saying, I trust the unseen. And if you can say that, even for a moment, you have done more than 1,000 anxious affirmations. You have done more than 1,000 fearful prayers. Because rest is the very atmosphere in which the wish fulfilled becomes natural. Naturalness is everything. A thing becomes yours when it feels natural, not when you force it, not when you chant it, not when you strain to maintain it, but when it begins to feel like you, when the state of peace feels like you, when the state of being provided for feels like you, when the state of being loved feels like you, when the state of being safe feels like you. That is acceptance, and acceptance is faith. This is why so many fail, and I say it with kindness. They attempt to live in the end while still clinging to the feeling of strain. They attempt to assume while still holding the posture of, I hope. But hope is not possession. Hope is distance. Hope is longing. Hope is the confession that you are not yet there. Faith is nearness. Faith is now. Faith is rest. And I want to speak now as if I were speaking directly into your inner being. Because I am. Your deeper self understands this without argument. It knows that the greatest power is quiet. It knows that the greatest movement often happens in stillness. It knows, even if your surface mind forgets, that you do not have to fight your way into a new life. You have only to accept the new life as your own, and then rest. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, let your last act be an act of trust, not a strained trust, but a tender one. Let it be like placing your head on the pillow and saying inwardly, I have done all that is required. The unseen is at work. It is already moving. If you have a problem, do not carry it into sleep like a burden. Carry the solution as a feeling. Carry relief. Carry peace. Carry the quiet sense that the matter is settled. Do not demand to know how. Do not demand to know when. The subconscious does not build by your schedule. It builds by your acceptance. And the moment you accept, the work is already underway. If you can rest, truly rest, then you have entered faith. And faith is not believing in something far away. Faith is living from what is already done. Faith is the inner stillness that says, I have received. Faith is the calm confidence that refuses to rehearse fear. Faith is the surrender that allows the universe, yes, the unseen order, the deeper intelligence of being, to do the work without your anxious interference. Sleep is the ultimate act of trust. And if you will allow sleep to teach you what trust feels like, you will begin to understand that manifestation is not a struggle, it is an acceptance. It is a resting in the end. You are not here to force life, you are here to stop resisting it. And as you rest, life moves. Now we come to the heart of the matter. And if you allow it to sink into you quietly, it will change the way you look at everything. Not with excitement, not with strain, but with a deep, steady understanding that makes life feel lighter. When I speak of imagination, I am not speaking of fantasy. I am not speaking of idle pictures that entertain you for a moment and then vanish. I am not speaking of childish make-believe that has no consequence. Those are the names the world gives to imagination because it does not understand what imagination truly is. Imagination is a fact. It is an inner fact. Yes, but a fact nonetheless. And the outer world, everything you call circumstance, everything you call reality, is only the delayed expression of inner facts accepted as true. If you would understand this, do not begin with the world. Begin with yourself. Notice how often, in the course of a single day, your mind imagines things that are not present to your senses. You imagine a conversation before it happens. You imagine the tone of someone's voice. You imagine what might be said. You imagine an outcome. Sometimes you imagine the best. Often, without meaning to, you imagine the worst. And then you step into the day, and you meet the very mood you rehearsed. People say it was just coincidence. But you and I, if we are honest, have seen too much to call it coincidence. The imaginal act is not powerless. It is creative. It is the womb of experience. It is the unseen cause. What you imagine, especially what you imagine with feeling, begins to press itself upon the deeper self, the subconscious, and that deeper self is the builder of your world. It does not argue with you. It does not reason. It does not question whether what you imagine is sensible. It simply accepts the inner act as a pattern. And then, in its own way and in its own time, it externalizes it as the facts of your life. This is why imagination is not fantasy. It is the workshop. And here is where many misunderstand. They believe imagination must be dramatic to be effective, as though they must see visions like a prophet or feel emotions like a storm. No, the most powerful imaginal acts are often quiet. They are simple. They are natural. They are carried like a gentle secret. You have imagined many things without effort. You have imagined yourself rejected. You have imagined yourself misunderstood. You have imagined that something would go wrong, and you carried that feeling as you went forward. You did not sit down and announce, I am now manifesting trouble, and yet trouble came, as naturally as a fruit comes from a seed. So I say to you with tenderness, you have already proven the law, even if you did not know you were proving it. Now, if imagination can produce what you fear, it can also produce what you desire. The law does not change. Only the use of it changes. The reason people call imagination fantasy is because they judge by appearances. They say, if I cannot see it with my eyes, it is not real. But that is not true. You cannot see love with your eyes, yet it shapes lives. You cannot see faith with your eyes, yet it moves men. You cannot see the thought that formed a building, yet the building stands as proof that the unseen preceded the seen. Every house was once an inner picture. Every letter was once an inner decision. Every journey was once an inner acceptance. The outer world is forever following the inner, though the world does not know it. And so when I say imagination is the cause, I mean it literally. Your imaginal act is an act of creation. It is not a weak shadow. It is the substance from which shadows are cast. Now you may ask, if it is so powerful, why does it not appear at once? Because the outer world is an echo. It is a mirror. It does not move first. It moves in response. And there is often a space of time between the inner act and its outward expression, just as there is a space of time between a voice and its echo in a great valley. But do not be deceived by the delay. Delay does not mean weakness. Delay does not mean failure. Delay is simply the time it takes for the unseen to arrange itself into visible form through what I call the bridge of incidence. The bridge of incidence is not built by your conscious mind. Your conscious mind would build a poor bridge because it sees only a few steps ahead. But the deeper self, the subconscious, sees connections you cannot see. It stirs people, rearranges events, opens doors, closes others, and weaves a path so natural that when you walk it, you often do not realize you are walking the fulfillment of your imaginal act until you arrive. That is why the imagined thing becomes inevitable. Not because you force it, but because you have accepted it. Acceptance is the key. Not wishing, not hoping, not pleading, but accepting. When you accept a state inwardly as true, you enter it. You occupy it. You become it in consciousness. And the world must reflect what you have become. Because the world is yourself pushed out. The world is the outpicturing of consciousness. Now I want to introduce a statement that if you allow it to settle in you, will end so much strain. It will end the frantic trying. It will end the sense that you are chasing life. Creation is finished. These are not words to decorate a talk. They are a revelation of how reality truly is. Creation is finished means that everything you could ever desire already exists, not in the sense that it is somewhere far away in space, but in the sense that it exists as a state, an arrangement of consciousness already complete. If you can desire it, it already exists. Desire is not the sign that something is absent. Desire is the sign that the state exists and is available to you. Desire is the call of that state upon you, inviting you to occupy it. Think of a great house with many rooms. You are not creating the rooms by walking into them. The rooms already exist. You are simply moving from one room to another, and each room has its own atmosphere, its own furniture, its own view from the windows. So it is with states. There is a state of poverty, and it has its own feelings, its own thoughts, its own expectations. There is a state of wealth, and it has its own feeling tone as well. There is a state of being loved, and a state of feeling alone. There is a state of being healthy, and a state of being fearful of the body. These are all rooms in the house of consciousness. You do not create the state, you enter it. You do not create the wish fulfilled. You occupy it, and once you occupy it, once you wear it as your inner garment, the outer world, being only the reflection of the state you occupy, must rearrange to match. That is why I tell you, nothing is created. Everything is selected. Everything is entered. Everything is assumed. People struggle because they believe they must make something happen in the world of Caesar, the world of facts. They think they must fight conditions, persuade people, manipulate events. They do not realize the world of Caesar is only the shadow. It moves when the inner moves. It changes when the state changes. So rather than trying to force the shadow, you enter the state. This is the gentle power of the teaching. It does not ask you to strain. It asks you to choose. Choose the state you would occupy if your desire were already fulfilled. Not tomorrow. Not in a year. Now. And then, by the simple act of imagining from that state, you plant the seed in the subconscious. Now let me be very clear about imagination as an inner fact. If you imagine yourself in a scene, you are not merely watching pictures, you are entering experience. The subconscious does not understand words in the way the conscious mind does. It understands experience. It understands feeling. It understands reality by sensation. So if you sit in your chair and imagine holding a letter that brings you good news, the subconscious is not impressed by the thought, I would like a letter. It is impressed by the feeling of paper in your hands, the relief in your chest, the quiet joy that rises when you read the words, it is done. That feeling is the seed. And once the seed is accepted, it must grow. This is why I urge you to keep imaginal acts simple. Do not build long stories. Do not strain to see 1,000 details. Choose a single short scene that implies the wish is already fulfilled. Keep it brief. Keep it vivid. Repeat it gently until it begins to feel natural. And then let it carry you into sleep. Sleep is the great friend of the imaginal act because sleep weakens the critical mind. In that drowsy borderland, what I call the state akin to sleep, the subconscious is open. It receives impressions without resistance. It accepts the feeling as fact, and what it accepts, it must express. Now perhaps you have heard of what I call the ladder experiment. I asked men and women to imagine themselves climbing a ladder, feeling the rungs beneath the hands, the movement of the body night after night, and then during the day to say, I will not climb a ladder. And yet, within days, they found themselves climbing ladders without planning it. Why did it work? Because the imaginal act was an inner fact. It was accepted by the subconscious as experience, and the subconscious, faithful to its function, arranged the outer world to mirror the inner act. If it can do it with a ladder, it can do it with anything. You see, the subconscious does not measure by size. It does not say, a ladder is small, a fortune is large. Those are judgments of the conscious mind. To the subconscious, the impression is the thing. If impressed, it must be expressed. So do not say, this is too much. Do not say, this is too far. Do not say, this is unlikely. Likelihood belongs to the world of odds. We are speaking of states. We are speaking of law. Creation is finished. The state exists. Your only question is whether you will enter it. Now I know the mind will protest. It will say, but if I enter the state without evidence, am I not deceiving myself? No, you are redeeming yourself. You are choosing the cause rather than bowing to the effect. The world you see is only the past. It is the past solidified. It is the result of states you once occupied. If you want a different future, you must occupy a different state now. And to occupy it, you use imagination, not as fantasy, but as a deliberate inner act. You imagine from the end, you feel the relief, the satisfaction, the completion, and then you rest. Do not underestimate the power of simple acceptance. A man once desired to return to his home. He had no means, no visible path, no reason to think it could happen soon. Yet he did not keep staring at his circumstances. He did not keep repeating the story of lack. He entered the end. Night after night, he imagined himself in his home, feeling the familiar atmosphere, sensing the comfort of being there. He did not ask, how will it happen? He accepted being there as an inner fact, and life rearranged itself to confirm the inner fact. It may come through a ticket, through a friend, through a chain of ordinary events. The bridge of incidents will be as natural as breathing, but it will be inevitable, because the state has been entered. This is what I mean when I say imagination is the only creative workshop. It is the place where you choose the state that will become your world. Now notice the difference between imagining and daydreaming. Daydreaming is often wishful and weak. It carries the feeling, wouldn't it be nice? That is not possession. That is distance. That is longing. And longing reproduces itself as more longing. But imagining, as Neville teaches, it is different. It is not, wouldn't it be nice? It is how wonderful it is. It is not, maybe someday. It is now. It is not watching yourself from afar like a spectator. It is entering the scene and participating. This participation is what makes the imaginal act real. So if you desire health, do not sit and think, I want to be healthy. Enter the feeling of health. Feel the ease of the body. Feel the freedom of movement. Feel the quiet confidence of waking and forgetting illness entirely. Make it natural. Make it simple. Make it present. If you desire love, do not merely wish for it. Enter the state of being loved. Feel the warmth. Feel the security. Feel the quiet certainty that you are cherished. Let the scene imply it. Perhaps it is an embrace. Perhaps it is a tender voice. Perhaps it is the simple feeling of belonging. Make it real within, and the world must echo it without. If you desire provision, do not stare at the lack. Enter the feeling of being provided for. Feel the relief of bills paid. Feel the ease of giving. Feel the calm confidence that there is always more than enough. That feeling, impressed, becomes fact. This is not a philosophy to admire. It is a law to use, and you will know it is law when you test it and see life conform, not once, but again and again. Now I must say something that will help you greatly. The imaginal act does not require constant labor. Many attempt to hold it all day, and when their attention slips, they think they have failed. They become fearful of their own minds. They imagine they have ruined the seed because they had a doubtful thought. But the seed does not require panic. It requires planting. If you plant a seed in soil, the seed does not die because you momentarily stop thinking about it. It grows in darkness. It grows without your supervision. It grows by law. So too with the imaginal act. If you have truly entered the state, if you have felt it real, even for a few moments, and then allowed yourself to fall asleep in that feeling, you have planted. The subconscious has received. The work is underway. Your task afterward is not to dig it up with worry. Your task is to live as naturally as possible from the new assumption. That means you do not return to the old story with devotion. You do not keep confessing the old condition. You do not keep entertaining the same inner conversation that produced the old world. You remain loyal to the end. Loyalty is not strain. It is preference. It is the quiet choice to return again and again to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, especially when your mind tries to drift into fear. If you do this, you will find that the feeling becomes more natural. And when it becomes natural, the outer world has no choice. It must reflect it. This is why what is imagined becomes inevitable. Because the world is not independent. It is not separate. It is a mirror. And a mirror must reflect what stands before it. So when you stand inwardly as the one who is already fulfilled, the mirror must eventually show fulfillment. Now I want to speak again to the deeper self in you, the subconscious, because it is listening now, whether you are awake or asleep. You do not need to make this difficult. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to wrestle with your mind. You only need to choose the state and enter it. Creation is finished. The room exists. The life you desire exists as a state. You are not creating it from nothing. You are stepping into it. And because you are stepping into it, because you are accepting it as inner fact, the world will do what it always does. It will rearrange itself to agree. So let the idea of struggle fall away. Let the belief that you must force life release its grip. Let the old training soften. Imagination is not fantasy. Imagination is fact. It is the one workshop where the future is forged. And the future, once accepted as a state, is no longer a future. It becomes a present reality within you. And what is present within you must, in its appointed hour, become present without you. This is why I speak as I do tonight, softly and steadily, because I want you to begin using your nights as they were meant to be used, not for worry, not for rehearsal of pain, not for endless questions, but for the quiet selection of a new state, a state of peace, a state of solution, a state of being provided for, a state of being loved, a state of wholeness. Choose one, not many. Enter it gently, feel it as real, and then let sleep take you. For when sleep takes you, the conscious mind releases its grip, and the subconscious receives the impression, and what it receives, it must express. Creation is finished. Nothing is created. Everything is occupied. And you, my friend, are the one who chooses which room you will sleep in tonight. When I first began to speak of living in the end, many assumed I was teaching a kind of clever trick. They thought it was something you did for a few minutes and then returned to the old life, as though one could put on a new state like a coat, admire it briefly, and then hang it back in the wardrobe of the imagination. But living in the end is not a trick, and it is not a strain. It is not a performance. It is not even, in the deepest sense, an act. It is a way of being. And I say that gently, because the moment people hear a way of being, they begin to tense, thinking they must maintain it by willpower, as though they must hold a heavy stone above their head without letting it fall. Yet the truth is the opposite. When you truly live in the end, it becomes lighter, it becomes natural, it becomes natural, it becomes quiet, it becomes almost ordinary. And because it becomes ordinary, it becomes inevitable. Living in the end is the inner posture of one who has already received. It is not the hope of receiving. It is not the effort of convincing. It is the settled atmosphere of fulfillment. If you could see it, you would not see it as a dramatic moment. You would see it as a subtle shift, like a room that grows warm without anyone noticing when the fire was lit. You would see it as a quiet change in breathing, a loosening in the chest, an unforced softness in the mind. You would see it as the ending of urgency. For urgency is the sign of unbelief. Urgency says, it is not mine yet. I must hurry. I must chase. I must hold tightly, or I will lose it. But the one who already possesses has no such urgency. The one who is already at home does not run through the house as though afraid it will vanish. He moves gently because he belongs there. He sits without asking permission. He breathes as though the air itself is his inheritance. That is living in the end. Now you may be listening to me and thinking, but Neville, my life does not look like the end I desire. How can I live in it? My friend, you do not live in the end by looking at the world and pretending it is different. You live in the end by moving inward and occupying the state that would be yours if the desire were already fulfilled. You are not asked to deny your senses with anger. You are asked to withdraw your allegiance from them. There is a difference. To deny with anger is to keep fighting the shadow. But to withdraw allegiance is to quietly turn away and give your attention to the cause. And attention is the most precious thing you possess, because what you give attention to, you fertilize. What you repeatedly contemplate, you feed. What you feel as real, you make real. So to live in the end is simply to give your attention, again and again, gently and without struggle, to the inner reality of the fulfilled desire. That inner reality is not an escape. It is the only true reality. Now let me speak of something that causes confusion. There are those who imagine as a way of escaping. They imagine to avoid pain. They imagine to forget life. They build castles in the air. And for a moment they feel relieved. But the moment they open their eyes, they return to the same state as before, and the same life continues. Why? Because they did not imagine to assume. They imagined to flee. To imagine to flee is to remain identified with the old state. You are still the one who lacks. You are merely entertaining yourself with a pleasant picture. It is like a hungry man who looks at food through a window and calls it a meal. He may feel a moment of comfort, but he has not eaten. He has only longed. But to imagine to assume is entirely different. To imagine to assume is to enter the state as though it were your present dwelling place. It is to accept it with the same quietness with which you accept your name. It is to become, in feeling, the one who already has. This is why I insist that the imaginal act must be felt as real. Not as real in the sense of a visible object, but real in the sense of inner conviction. Real enough that it changes your mood. Real enough that it softens your urgency. Real enough that it gives you rest. If your imagining leaves you restless, you have not entered the end. If your imagining leaves you anxious, you have not assumed the state. If your imagining feels like desperation, like I must do this or nothing will happen, then you have turned the act into effort. And effort is not the end. The end is rest. The end is the sigh of relief. The end is the quiet feeling. it is done. And that feeling has a very particular quality. It is not wild excitement. It is not frantic joy. It is a settled satisfaction. It is like placing a letter in the post and knowing the matter is now in motion. It is like laying your head upon the pillow and knowing morning will come without your labor. It is like closing the door behind you and realizing you no longer need to stand guard at the threshold. So when I say live in the end, I am speaking of a posture inside you. I am speaking of an emotional breathing. I am speaking of a silent identity. Posture is important, not the posture of the body alone, though the body often follows the mind, but the posture of consciousness. The posture of consciousness can be one of begging or one of receiving, one of waiting or one of having, one of strain or one of ease. And the world reflects posture. The world echoes identity. The world mirrors state. Now, if you are drifting towards sleep as you listen, that is perfect, because your deeper self is hearing me and it understands what I mean, far better than the anxious surface mind. The subconscious does not learn through argument. It learns through mood, through feeling, through repeated inner impressions. So even if you do not remember every word, your deeper self receives the atmosphere of this truth. And that atmosphere will begin to change the way you rest, the way you expect, the way you assume. Living in the end, then, is not something you do once. It is something you return to, gently, whenever you notice yourself slipping into the old identity. You may notice it by the inner conversation. The inner conversation is always a confession of state. If your inner conversation is filled with what if, and how will, and I can't, and it never, then you are living in the end of failure. You are living in the end of disappointment. You are already occupying a state, though you may not realize it. But if your inner conversation becomes, it is already done, and I am already supported, and this is already working, and I am safe, then you are living in the end of fulfillment. And the world must reflect it. This is why I say that living in the end is not a matter of forcing thoughts. It is a matter of moving into a new identity and letting the thoughts that belong to that identity arise naturally. Think of it this way. A man who believes himself secure does not spend the day rehearsing catastrophe. He may see events, he may hear news, he may face challenges, but there is a calm underneath it. He does not feel the need to tighten his whole being around the future. His security is not something he repeats like a chant. It is something he wears like a garment. That garment is the end. And the question is always the same. What garment are you wearing when you are alone? What identity do you return to when no one is listening? What end are you living in when you close your eyes at night? Because the night is honest. In the day you may distract yourself. In the day you may perform for others. But in the night when you are alone with your own consciousness, you reveal the state you truly occupy, and the state you sleep in is the state you water. The state you sleep in is the seed you plant. The state you sleep in becomes the world you wake into. So living in the end aligns perfectly with the title of this talk, because sleep is the doorway where the end can be entered most naturally. Sleep dissolves the arguments. Sleep quiets the mind that wants to measure and doubt. Sleep opens the deeper self that receives impressions as facts. But again, do not turn it into a technique. Do not say, I must do it perfectly, or it will not work. That is not living in the end. That is living in the end of failure. That is the old state disguised as effort. Instead, treat it as you would treat the most natural thing in the world, entering a mood before sleep. What mood would you fall asleep in if the matter were already resolved? Would you not breathe more slowly? Would you not feel your shoulders soften? Would you not stop running the same fearful scenes through your mind? Would you not feel a quiet gratitude, not forced, but natural, like the warmth of a lamp in a dark room? That mood is the end, and you can enter it now, not by force, not by pretending, but by consenting. Consent is a sacred act. It is the inner yes that allows the new state to occupy you. And once the state occupies you, you do not need to carry it like a burden. It carries you. It becomes your home. This is why the signs of living in the end are always the same. They are not loud. They are quiet. They are not dramatic. They are subtle. The signs are calm. The signs are the absence of urgency. The signs are naturalness. Calm does not mean you never have a thought of doubt. It means doubt no longer rules you. Calm means the doubt passes like a cloud, and the sky remains. Calm means you do not build a house in the cloud and move into it. Calm means you return to the end. Absence of urgency means you stop trying to squeeze life into your schedule. You stop saying, it must happen by this day, or I am ruined. You stop bargaining. You stop threatening yourself with disappointment. You stop making your peace dependent upon the outer. And naturalness means you stop feeling like you are doing something. You stop feeling like you are acting. You begin to feel like you are simply being. The wish fulfilled feels familiar. The new identity feels like home. And when it feels like home, the world must eventually furnish the outer rooms to match. Now I want to speak of something that will help you greatly, especially if you are using this talk as you fall asleep. Many people believe that living in the end means they must feel constant joy, constant excitement, constant certainty. They imagine that if they are not thrilled, they are failing. But the fulfilled end is not always thrilling. Sometimes it is simply peaceful. If you were truly free of a burden, you would not necessarily dance all night. You might simply breathe. You might simply rest. You might lie down without the knot in the stomach, without the tightness in the chest. You might feel ordinary again. And that ordinary peace is one of the greatest signs that you have entered the end. So do not chase excitement. Chase naturalness. Naturalness is the language of the subconscious. The subconscious accepts what feels natural. It rejects, not by argument, but by your own resistance. If a thing feels forced, it has not yet become your state. So you return to it gently, night after night, not to beg, but to familiarize yourself with it. It is like moving into a new home. The first night, everything feels unfamiliar. The second, less so. After a week, you move through the rooms without thinking. The home becomes yours, not by proclamation, but by dwelling. So it is with states. You may enter the state of being loved tonight and feel it for a moment, and then the old loneliness tries to return. Do not condemn yourself. Do not panic. Simply return. Return as you would return to your home after stepping outside. You may enter the state of being provided for and feel relief, and then the mind shows you a bill. Do not fight the bill. Do not try to erase it with anger. Simply return to the end. Remember, the bill is the echo of yesterday. The end is the cause of tomorrow. You may enter the state of health and feel the freedom of it, and then the body speaks. Do not become frightened by the body. The body is a faithful servant, but it is often slow. It reflects the past. It will change when the state changes, but the state must be held with gentleness and persistence until it becomes natural. And I say gentleness deliberately, because harshness belongs to the old identity. The old identity believes it must fight life. The new identity knows it need only assume. Now perhaps you wonder, what does it feel like to assume? It feels like a quiet ownership. It feels like you stop looking for permission. It feels like you stop asking, will it happen? And begin living with the inner knowing. It is mine, not in arrogance, not in pride, but in certainty. A child knows how to do this naturally. A child can become a king in an instant, not because the child has a throne, but because the child assumes the state and feels it. The child does not stand aside analyzing whether it is possible. The child enters the role. The child lives from it. And we are told, unless you become as little children, it does not mean childishness, it means the capacity to assume without strain. The capacity to accept a state without demanding evidence first. The capacity to enter the end and dwell there. Now let me give you an image. Imagine two people sitting by a fire. One is cold and shivering, and he says, when the fire becomes hot enough, then I will warm myself. The other steps closer, and he begins to warm. The first is waiting for the outer condition to change before he changes within. The second changes his position, and the warmth follows. Living in the end is changing your position in consciousness. You stop waiting for the outer to warm you, to love you, to provide for you, to reassure you. You step into the state inwardly, and the outer follows. The fire of life responds to your position. So if you would live in the end, you must learn to notice when you have stepped away from it. You will notice by your breath. The breath becomes tight when you have returned to fear. The breath becomes shallow when you have returned to struggle. But when you are in the end, the breath becomes deeper. The shoulders release. The jaw softens. The body begins to behave as though the matter were already settled. This is why I call it emotional breathing. The state has a breath. Poverty has a breath. Wealth has a breath. Fear has a breath. Love has a breath. The end you live in can be felt in the way you breathe, even before any outer change appears. So tonight, as you listen, let your breath become the confession of the end. Not by forcing it, but by allowing the words to carry you into a new mood, a mood of completion, a mood of safety, a mood of already having. If your mind tries to wander into how, bring it back into done. If your mind tries to wander into when, bring it back into now. If your mind tries to wander into what if, bring it back into it is already arranged. You are not wrestling with thoughts. You are selecting a state. And if you select the state and remain faithful to it, the thoughts will begin to change on their own. The inner conversation will begin to align. The urgency will fade. The calm will grow. The naturalness will deepen. And these are the signs that you are living in the end. Now I want to speak to your subconscious again, because it is listening. Whether you are awake or asleep, it is receiving. And I want it to receive this as a gentle command. Not loud, not forced, but certain. You are allowed to live as though it is already done. You are allowed to stop waiting. You are allowed to stop preparing for disappointment. You are allowed to stop punishing yourself with urgency. You are allowed to rest in the end. For the end is not something you earn. The end is something you occupy. And the moment you occupy it, the universe, this vast outward expression of states, begins to do the work. Not because you persuaded it, because you stopped resisting it, because you stopped living in the end of fear, because you stopped imagining to escape and began imagining to assume. So let this be your gentle practice, not as a method you strain to perform, but as a place you return to the feeling of already having the mood of completion, the quiet identity of the one who has received. If you drift into sleep now, let it be in that identity. If you remain awake, let your wakefulness be soft. Either way, you are being impressed. Either way, the seed is being planted. Either way, the end is being entered. And when you live in the end, you will notice something beautiful. The world begins to feel less threatening. The future feels less heavy. The mind stops racing. And even before a single outer event changes, you will feel that you have changed. You will feel like someone who is already on the other side. That feeling is not imagination pretending. That feeling is the end, and the end once entered must objectify itself. There is a reason I return again and again to the night. Not because the night is mysterious for its own sake, but because the night is honest. The day is filled with noise, with obligations, with faces to meet and tasks to perform. In the day, you are tempted to measure everything by what your eyes can see and your hands can touch. In the day, the senses argue loudly, and reason loves to sit in judgment. But the night is different. In the night, the body begins to release its grip. The muscles soften. The breath slows. The eyes grow heavy. The mind that likes to calculate and compare begins to lose its sharpness, as though the edges of thought are being gently rounded by something greater than will. That something is not weakness, it is mercy. It is the natural design of being. When the body sleeps, reason dims. And when reason dims, the deeper self becomes accessible. This is what most people do not understand. They treat sleep as though it were merely rest for the flesh. They believe night is simply a pause, a blank space between 2 days. But I tell you, the night is not empty. It is full. It is the most fertile portion of your entire day, and it has always been so. The conscious mind, in its waking hours, is like a watchman at a gate. It questions everything. It says, is this reasonable? Is this possible? Is this consistent with the past? Is this allowed? It guards the doorway to the deeper mind, and often it guards it with fear. It does not mean to be cruel. It believes it is protecting you. Yet in its protection, it often imprisons you inside the old story. But as you drift towards sleep, the watchman grows tired. Not because you have defeated him, but because it is the natural order. The gate relaxes. The questions lose their strength, the resistance weakens, and the deeper mind, the subconscious, that faithful womb of creation, opens itself to receive. This is why the night is the key. Because at night you are less able to argue against your own good. At night you are less tempted to sabotage the new with the old. At night you can accept what you would resist in the light of day. And so I speak to you now as though I was standing at your bedside. Not to excite you, not to stir you, but to soothe you into understanding. For understanding, if it comes with tension, does not take root, but understanding that comes with rest sinks deeply and becomes part of you. Let me paint the picture for you gently. You already know what it feels like to hover at the edge of sleep. You are not fully awake, yet you are not gone into unconsciousness. You can still hear sounds. You can still feel the bed beneath you. Yet the world begins to fade. Your thoughts become slower, softer, less demanding. Images may drift across the mind like clouds. You may feel the body heavy, as though it belongs to the earth again. This interval is sacred. It is the threshold. It is the place where the world of facts loses its grip, and the world of feeling becomes dominant. It is the place where you can accept an inner act as real, without the usual struggle. And because the subconscious is moved by feeling, this is the moment when you can impress it most deeply. The night is like rich soil, the day is like hard ground. In the day, you scatter seeds of thought, but the sun is hot, the wind is strong, the birds of distraction are everywhere. You may intend to plant something good, yet your attention is pulled away again and again. The seed remains on the surface. It dries. It is stolen by worry. It is smothered by the old conversation, but at night the soil opens. At night the seed falls deeper. At night the earth covers it and protects it. And what is that seed? It is not words. Words are only a shell. The seed is the feeling that accompanies the inner act. The seed is the mood you accept as you cross the threshold into sleep. This is why I say something that may sound almost too simple, but it is as exact as mathematics. Once you test it, what you feel as you fall asleep becomes law. Not might become, not could become, if you are lucky. Becomes law because the subconscious takes that final feeling as a command. It takes it as truth. It accepts it without argument. And once accepted, it begins at once to weave the bridge of incidents that will bring the outer world into harmony with the inner impression. Now, if you have never considered this, you may realize something immediately. Many people go to bed rehearsing fear. They do not mean to, they simply lie down. And the day begins to replay itself like a painful drama. They review what went wrong. They imagine what might go wrong tomorrow. They have conversations in their mind that never happened. And they fill them with disappointment. They count what they lack. They feel the pressure of the future. They whisper inwardly, I don't know what to do. I'm trapped, I'm behind, I'm afraid. And then they fall asleep in that mood. My friend, they have just planted their tomorrow. They have impressed the womb of creation with fear, with lack, with struggle. The subconscious does not judge it. It does not say, that is not good for you. It simply accepts, and it begins to outpicture. And so they awaken, and the world seems to confirm their fear. They say, I knew it. Life is hard. Yet life is not hard. The state they slept in was hard, and the world simply echoed it. Now this is not said to frighten you. It is said to awaken your power gently. For if the night can be misused, it can also be used wisely. If you can plant weeds before sleep, you can plant roses. If you can impress fear, you can impress peace. If you can impress defeat, you can impress fulfillment. And the beautiful thing is, you do not need hours. You do not need strain. You do not need to force the mind into rigid concentration. You need only understand what the night is, and treat it with reverence. I call that borderland the state akin to sleep, because it is like sleep, yet not quite. You are still aware enough to direct the imagination, but relaxed enough that the direction is accepted without the usual resistance. In that gentle drowsiness, the imaginal act becomes vivid, not because you force it, but because the senses are quieting and the inner world becomes more pronounced. This is why people often have the most vivid memories, the most vivid dreams, the most vivid impressions in the night. The inner world is closer. The outer world is farther. The balance shifts. And as it shifts, you become receptive. Receptivity is power. The world has taught you that power means pushing, striving, controlling. But the deeper law reveals that power often looks like yielding. It looks like allowing. It looks like consenting to the end. When you lie down at night, you are already practicing surrender. You are already practicing letting go. The body is teaching you, without words, the greatest lesson of faith. You can release control and still be carried. You can stop supervising life and still be sustained. So why not use that same surrender to carry you into your desired state? You do not have to make anything happen. You only have to feel the end as true as you fall asleep. That feeling is the seed, and the subconscious, being fertile, being faithful, being creative, will bring it forth. Now let me speak again to your deeper self, because it is listening even if you are drifting, even if you are already asleep. These words find you, because the subconscious hears meaning and feeling beyond the surface of language. You are safe to let go tonight. You are safe to stop rehearsing fear. You are safe to stop planning pain. You are safe to enter sleep as the one who has already received. And the moment you do, you will begin to notice that sleep itself changes. The body relaxes more easily. The mind stops circling. The heart softens. You may even feel, for the first time in a long time, that you are not fighting life. You are being held by it. This is not an illusion. This is alignment. Now many ask, but what exactly should I do as I fall asleep? And I will answer, but I answer in the spirit of gentleness, not as a rigid instruction, not as a labor. Because the night does not respond to effort. The night responds to mood. Ask yourself quietly, as you lie there, if this were already solved, how would I feel? If I were already safe, how would my chest feel? If I were already provided for, what would happen to the tightness in my stomach? If I were already loved, what would happen to the loneliness in my heart? Do you see? You are not hunting for a complicated answer. You are finding a simple feeling tone: relief, ease, gratitude, calm, quiet confidence. Then you let that feeling be present, not because you are pretending, but because you are accepting the state. And if an imaginal scene helps you enter it, let it be simple. A short moment that implies the end is already true. Not the whole story, not the whole story, not the struggle, just the conclusion, just the feeling of it being done. And you repeat it gently, like rocking a child, not like drilling a soldier. You let it become natural. And if sleep comes in the middle, that is not failure. That is success. Because the last thing the subconscious received was the end. This is why I say the night is the key. Because you do not need to carry the end all day with strain. You plant it at night with feeling, and then you let the deeper self do the work. Have you ever watched how the body heals itself in sleep? A wound closes, a fever breaks, strength returns. You do not sit up all night ordering the cells to repair. You do not instruct the blood to cleanse. You simply sleep, and the body works. In the same way, the subconscious rearranges the world when you sleep. It draws to you the ideas, the impulses, the meetings, the opportunities, the changes of heart in others, the subtle turns of events. It does it quietly. It does it naturally. It does it without asking you for permission again and again. But it must be given the right seed, and the seed is always what you feel as you fall asleep. So do not underestimate the final mood of the night. Do not treat it casually. Do not drift into sleep with bitterness and then wonder why the day tastes bitter. Do not fall asleep in fear and then wonder why the world seems frightening. The subconscious is not punishing you, it is obeying you. You may say, then must I be perfect every night? No, my friend. Perfection is another form of strain. And strain is what we are leaving behind. You will not always remember. Some nights you will be tired. Some nights old habits will tug at you, but the moment you remember, you can return. And returning is what matters. Returning gently, without condemnation, without panic. If you fall asleep in worry tonight, you have not ruined your life. You simply planted worry. And tomorrow, you can plant peace. And the more you plant peace, the more peace becomes your natural state. The subconscious learns by repetition. It learns by what you return to. It learns by what you dwell in, especially at the edge of sleep. So if you wish to change your world, begin by changing your nights. Make the night a sanctuary, not a battleground, not a courtroom, not a place where you sentence yourself for the day's mistakes. Make it a place of release, a place of acceptance, a place where you enter the end softly and let the unseen do what it does best. And remember this phrase, not as a slogan, but as a law. You can test what you feel as you fall asleep becomes law. If you want a new law to govern your life, choose a new feeling at night. Choose the end. Choose relief. Choose completion. Choose the quiet certainty that it is already arranged. Then let sleep take you. For sleep is not merely rest. Sleep is the doorway, and the one who learns to enter that doorway in the end finds that the day begins to change without struggle, because the night has already planted the seed. There is one last habit of the mind that clings like a vine, even after you have begun to understand the law. It is subtle, because it often disguises itself as wisdom. It says, yes, I accept the end, but how will it happen? Or it says, yes, I can imagine it, but when will it arrive? And the one who asks these questions believes he is being reasonable. He believes he is being careful. He believes he is protecting himself from disappointment. Yet in truth, these two questions, how and when, are the final form of resistance. The how is resistance, because it is the mind refusing to surrender the means. It is the conscious mind trying to be the architect of what only the subconscious can construct. It is the little self insisting it must supervise the infinite. The when is doubt disguised as patience. It is the mind saying, I will believe once time proves it. It is the demand for evidence before acceptance. And because the law is reversed, because acceptance precedes evidence, the question of when becomes a quiet confession that you have not yet truly entered the end. Now hear me softly, because this is not said to scold you, it is said to free you. If you have asked how and when, you have not failed. You have simply been human. The conscious mind has been trained to measure and manage. It wants to feel safe by knowing. It wants to feel secure by predicting. But the safe place is not in prediction. The safe place is in state. When you enter the state, the how and the when are not your burden. They are the burden of the unseen order. They belong to the deeper intelligence that moves behind the scenes. And that intelligence is not outside you. It is within you, as the subconscious, as the creative power that takes your feeling as fact and builds the bridge. The reason the how troubles people is because they believe they must get the desire from the world. They picture the desire as a thing outside themselves, somewhere far away. And they think the only way to reach it is to find the correct road, the correct door, the correct series of steps. But you are not traveling outward to find your fulfillment. You are traveling inward to occupy it. Once you occupy it inwardly, the world must supply the road. The world must provide the door. The world must arrange the steps. It cannot do otherwise, because the world is only the reflection of your occupied state. It is compelled to conform, so the how is not your work. And the moment you take the how upon yourself, you quietly remove yourself from the end and place yourself back into the state of struggle. You become the one who is trying to make it happen rather than the one who has already received. You begin to supervise the process, and in supervising it, you interfere with it. This is why so many people feel exhausted. They imagine for a moment, then immediately they begin to manage. They begin to inspect. They begin to watch the outer world, like a guard watching a gate, looking for proof, looking for movement, looking for signs. And every time the sign does not appear quickly enough, they tighten again, they doubt again. They plant again the old seed of delay. Now, if you want a simple image for this, take the image of a letter. In my day, when a letter is posted, you do not stand at the post office window demanding to know the exact route it will take. You do not insist to see every hand that will carry it. You do not ask at what hour the train will pass this village or that. You post the letter, and you know it will arrive. The letter is the imaginal act. Posting it is the acceptance of the end. The journey of the letter is the bridge of incidents. And your only role after posting it is to stop interfering. Stop running back to the post office with anxiety. Stop trying to pull the letter out of the bag. Stop doubting the very law of delivery. Yet this is exactly what people do with their desires. They plant the seed at night, and in the morning they dig it up with the question, when? They impress the subconscious with relief, and then the same day they undo it with the anxious thought, how will it happen? My friend, the seed does not grow in the atmosphere of supervision. It grows in the atmosphere of trust. Trust is not a word. Trust is rest. And rest is the great proof that you have truly left the how and the when to the deeper self. Now let me say something that will save you much time and much heartache. The conscious mind is not capable of inventing the means by which your desire will come. It cannot. It sees too little. It knows too little. It only knows what it has already known. It only reasons from the past. So when you demand that your conscious mind figure out the how, you are demanding that yesterday invent tomorrow, and yesterday cannot invent tomorrow. Only the deeper self can do that. Only imagination, impressed upon the subconscious, can weave the new through channels you could never predict. This is why I have said so often, do not be concerned with the means. It is not because the means do not matter. They matter greatly, but they are not yours to arrange. They are arranged by the law itself once you enter the end. And the law is infinitely more resourceful than your anxious mind. Now I will tell you, with complete honesty, that one of the great reasons people do not receive what they desire is because they insist it must come through one particular door. They narrow the infinite down to one small passage, and then they stare at that passage day and night, afraid the door will not open. But the subconscious does not work that way. It may open a door you did not even know existed. It may build a door where none appeared to be. It may remove you from one hallway entirely and bring you through another. And because you were busy watching the first door, you almost miss the fulfillment that arrived through the second. This is why you must let go of the how. Let me give you a simple story. I desired once to return to Barbados. I did not have the means. I did not know the path. If I had tried to reason it out, I would have failed at once, because every visible fact denied the possibility. So I did not ask how. I did not sit with pen and paper trying to devise a method. Instead, I occupied the end. I fell asleep in the feeling of being in Barbados. I let that be my inner fact. And what happened? The means appeared, but not by my calculation. It came by a movement in another, by an impulse I could not have forced. A ticket was sent. The bridge of incidents formed, and I found myself walking in the very place I had lived in imagination. Had I demanded the how, I would have blocked it. I would have tried to make it happen in my own narrow way. I might have missed the natural unfolding. But because I left the how to the law did the work. Now consider another story. A woman came to me burdened with a difficulty she did not know how to solve. She had tried to plan her way out. She had made lists. She had worried herself sick. Every plan created another complication. I asked her to do something different, not to plan harder, but to accept relief. I told her to enter the feeling that the matter was already resolved, to fall asleep in that quiet satisfaction, as though the solution had already arrived. She did it, though she did not understand. And within a short time, the solution came, not by a path she could have invented. It came through an ordinary chain of events, so natural that to the outsider it looked like chance, but it was not chance, it was the bridge. This is what you must understand. The bridge of incidents is always natural. It does not announce itself with trumpets, it does not often look like miracle, it looks like life, it looks like an ordinary conversation, it looks like a letter arriving. It looks like a meeting you almost didn't attend. It looks like a delay that later reveals itself to be a protection. It looks like a closed door that was simply guiding you toward another. This is why supervising is so dangerous. When you supervise, you demand dramatic signs. You demand obvious proof. You demand that the bridge be labeled for you, so you can say, "Ah, yes, this is the means." But the law rarely works with such theatrical gestures. It works in whispers, it works in ordinary forms. And the one who insists on supervising often says, "Nothing is happening," because he cannot see the invisible movement. He forgets that the seed grows beneath the soil. He forgets that the letter travels when it is out of his hands. He forgets that the bridge is built quietly. So the universe does the work once you stop supervising it. When I say the universe, I am speaking of that unseen order, that deeper intelligence of consciousness itself, the power that takes your inner acceptance and rearranges your outer world to match. It does not need your anxious help. It needs your consent. Now let us speak of when, because the question of when is perhaps even more subtle than the question of how. The mind asks when, because it wants to protect itself from disappointment. It says, if I know when, I can endure. If I know the date, I can relax. But notice the contradiction. You are trying to relax by obtaining certainty from the outer world, when relaxation is precisely the inner state that produces outer certainty. So the question of when is the mind saying, I will not rest until I am shown. But rest is the very act that allows the showing. And so the question becomes a loop, a circle of delay. You wait for time to reassure you, and the reassurance is withheld because you are waiting. You have placed your peace in the future, and the future never arrives, because the only moment in which the seed can be planted is now. If you want a simpler way to see it, look at the farmer. He plants. And if he then asks, when exactly will the sprout appear, he is not asking from faith. He is asking from anxiety. For the farmer who trusts does not demand the calendar. He knows the nature of the seed. He knows the nature of the soil. He knows the harvest must come. So he waters and he lives his life. He does not stand at the field with a ruler measuring the growth each hour. He does not threaten the soil with discouragement. He rests. In the same way, the one who truly lives in the end does not keep asking. He has entered the state, and in the state there is a feeling of inevitability. He may not know the hour, but he has ceased to doubt the outcome. He is no longer in the posture of waiting. He is in the posture of having. This is why I say that when is doubt, disguised as patience. It sounds harmless, but it is a confession that you still believe in delay. It is the mind still trying to live in the end of not having, while pretending it is living in the end of having. Now I am not telling you never to wonder. A thought may arise, but you must not feed it. You must not build your dwelling place in the question. Let it pass like a breeze. Return to the end. Return to the feeling it is done. Because once you have truly entered that feeling, the when loses its power. You are no longer hungry for a date, you are satisfied in the state. And that satisfaction is the seed of the visible manifestation. Now let me offer you another story, very gently, to show you how the how and when can ruin a thing, and how letting them go can free it. There was a man who desired a change in his circumstances. He imagined the end faithfully, But then he began to dictate the means. He insisted it must come through a particular person, through a particular channel, by a particular time. And because he insisted, he became tense. He watched, he waited, he reacted, the state of fulfillment slipped away, replaced by the state of strain, and the thing did not come. Not because the law failed, but because he left the end. He returned to me and said, "Neville, it did not happen." I asked him, "Did you remain in the state?" He hesitated, and then he confessed. "No, I kept checking. I kept watching. I kept wondering how." So I asked him to do something that seemed almost too simple, to stop dictating, to stop supervising, to accept the end and let the law find its own way. He did it. And what happened was interesting. The fulfillment came, but not through the channel he had demanded. It came through another, a better one, a more natural one that required less struggle. And when it arrived so quietly that he nearly missed the miracle, because it wore the clothes of the ordinary. This is always the way. The law loves naturalness. The law does not announce, "Behold, a manifestation." It simply unfolds. So if you would truly let the universe do the work, you must stop supervising it. Supervising looks like constantly measuring. It looks like constantly searching for signs. It looks like repeatedly asking the same question. It looks like the inner conversation that says, "Is it working? Did I do it right? Have I ruined it? How long does it take?" These are not innocent questions. They are the voice of the old state. And the old state, if indulged, will recreate the old world. But you, my friend, are learning to live from a new state. And the new state has a new voice. The new voice is quieter. It does not interrogate. It does not demand. It does not threaten you with failure. It simply says, "It is done." Now, because you are listening, perhaps in bed, perhaps in the night, let me speak to your subconscious with special clarity. For your subconscious, unlike the conscious mind, does not enjoy supervising. It enjoys receiving. It enjoys building. It enjoys taking an impression and bringing it forth. Your subconscious is the worker. Your conscious mind is the chooser. Your only work is to choose the end. Then the subconscious works out the means. When you insist on how, you try to become both chooser and worker. And in doing so, you exhaust yourself. You are like a man who plants a seed and then tries to grow it by pulling it upward with his hands. He is interfering with the very process that would grow it if he left it alone. So tonight, if you remember nothing else from this section, remember this: the universe does the work once you stop supervising it. You select the state. You enter the end. You feel it as true. And then you let go. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It means releasing the strain of control. It means refusing to rehearse doubt. It means allowing the bridge of incidents to form in its own way. Now, to help you let go, you must understand something very important. The bridge often includes events that your conscious mind would have avoided. It may include a delay. It may include a closed door. It may include a change you did not anticipate. And if you are supervising, you will misinterpret these events as failure. But if you are not supervising, you will move through them naturally, without panic. And later, you will look back and see that each event was a perfect part of the unfolding. I have seen this again and again. People imagine the end, and then a door closes. They panic. They say, "It is going wrong." But the door that closes was the door that would have kept them from their end. The closing was not denial. It was guidance. People imagine the end, and then something shifts. They fear. They say everything is changing. Yes, everything must change, because you have entered a new state. The old arrangement cannot remain. The world is rearranging itself, so do not supervise with fear. Do not interpret every movement as danger. Interpret movement as evidence that the unseen is at work. Now here is another gentle truth. If you truly lived in the end, you would not be frantic for proof. You would not be scanning the horizon. You would not be counting the minutes. You would be resting. So when you notice yourself supervising, do not condemn yourself. Simply recognize it as a sign that you have momentarily stepped out of the end, and then return. Return to the feeling you planted. Return to the relief. Return to the quiet assumption. You may even use a simple inner phrase, spoken softly, not as a chant but as a reminder. It is already arranged. And then breathe. If you do this, you will begin to feel something shift. The mind will stop gripping. The chest will soften. The eyes will grow heavier. The body will remember how to trust. And the subconscious, hearing that mood, will accept it as its command. Now I want you to imagine, gently, without strain, how different your nights would be if you truly let go of how and when. How different it would feel to put your head on the pillow without bringing the whole world with you. How different it would feel to release the day and fall into sleep with the quiet sense that the unseen is working. This is not foolishness. This is wisdom, because sleep is already proof that you can surrender and still be carried. So let sleep teach you the deeper trust. Tonight, you do not need to solve. You do not need to supervise. You do not need to supervise. You do not need to calculate. You need only to feel the end. And when you feel the end, and you drift into sleep in that feeling, the universe does what it always does. It rearranges itself to match the state you have entered. It draws to you the right impulses, the right meetings, the right ideas. It shifts hearts. It opens doors. It closes others. It moves pieces you cannot move by will. It brings what you cannot force. And it does it quietly, naturally, faithfully. So I say to you again, as you soften into the night, release the how, release the when, release the need to watch. Let the unseen do the work, because the universe does the work once you stop supervising it. Now let us come to the quiet center of it, the place where the whole circle closes and the struggle falls away. Most people believe they are trying to manifest a thing. They speak of money, or love, or health, or peace, as though these were objects drifting somewhere outside them, waiting to be pulled in by effort, or by luck, or by the right arrangement of words. And so they say, I want, again and again. They say it aloud. They say it inwardly. They say it in the tone of longing. They say it with a secret ache. But my friends, the life you live does not spring from what you want. It springs from what you assume you are. You do not manifest what you desire in the way the world imagines. You manifest what you consent to, what you accept, what you quietly claim as your identity. The outer world is not responding to your wishes. It is responding to your I am. This is why so many remain in the same patterns for years. They want one thing and receive another. They long for love, yet meet distance. They long for security, yet meet uncertainty. They long for freedom, yet find themselves repeating the same limitations. And they say, why is life doing this to me? But life is not doing it to them. Life is revealing to them, faithfully, precisely the state they are occupying. If you wish to see how this works, listen closely to your own inner speech. Not the words you say to others, but the words you say to yourself when you are alone, especially the words you say when you are tired, when you are quiet, when you are not trying to impress anyone. Those words are the confession of identity. Those words are the unguarded I am that shapes the days to come. A man may say, I want to be prosperous, yet in the silence he says, I am always struggling. A woman may say, I want to be loved, yet in the depths she whispers, I am not chosen. Another may say, I want peace, yet he lives in the assumption, I am never safe. And the subconscious, being faithful, being literal, accepts the deeper confession and builds the world to match. This is why I tell you that the most important change is not in what you want, but in who you are while you want it. There is a subtle cruelty in living from I want. It keeps the desire always in front of you, always out of reach. I want is a confession that the thing is absent. It is the state of the seeker. And the seeker, by the very nature of seeking, continues to seek. Seeking becomes a home. Longing becomes a habit. Waiting becomes a lifestyle. And the world, like a mirror, reflects more seeking, more longing, more waiting. But I am is different. I am is not the cry of the seeker. It is the posture of the one who has already received. When you say, I am, and you attach to it the state you desire, I am safe, I am loved, I am provided for, I am free. You are not merely saying words, you are clothing your awareness of being with a new garment. And what you clothe it with must be expressed, because the I am is the creative name. It is the living presence. It is God's name in you. Now, I do not say this to make you cautious in a fearful way. I say it to make you reverent in a freeing way. For if I am is truly the name of God in you, then you no longer speak it lightly. You no longer join it to defeat, to shame, to hopelessness, and call that humility. You no longer accept the old label as truth simply because you have repeated it for years. You begin to understand that every time you say I am, you are making a decree. And a decree, once accepted by feeling, becomes the law of your personal world. This is why identity is everything. The world does not care what you hope for. The world does not care what you plan. The world reflects what you are being. So if you want the circle to close, if you want to stop wrestling, stop supervising, stop asking how and when, then you must come back to this. Who am I while I rest? Not who am I while I struggle. Not who am I while I worry, but who am I while I rest? Because the night reveals the true self. In the day you may pretend. You may speak with confidence while fear lives beneath the words. You may smile while you secretly anticipate disappointment. You may tell others it will work out while inside you are rehearsing the possibility of loss. The day allows these contradictions because it is filled with motion and distraction. But the night strips you down to your true assumption. The night does not ask for your performance. The night asks only for what you really believe. When you close your eyes, when the room grows quiet, when the body grows heavy, the masks fall away. The mind begins to drift toward its home state, the one it returns to when it is not being watched. And that home state is your identity. That is why I call the night self the true self. Not because it is morally better, but because it is honest. It reveals what you actually accept, not what you say you accept. It reveals the state you live in when no one is applauding you, when no one is listening, when there is nothing to prove. So if you wish to know what you are manifesting, do not look first at your words in the day. Look at your mood in the night. Look at the final feeling you carry into sleep. Look at what you whisper inwardly when the world is quiet. That is the seed. That is the identity. That is what hardens into fact. Now do not be frightened by this. Be comforted by it. Because if the night reveals the true self, then the night also offers you the simplest opportunity to change the self. You do not change your identity by arguing with it. You do not change it by condemning it. You do not change it by fighting yourself. You change it the same way you change a room you are sitting in. You rise and you move. You move inwardly. You move in consciousness. You shift from the state of I want to the state of I am. And you do it most easily at night, because the mind is already relaxed, already softened, already less resistant. The old story is tired. The watchman is sleepy. The subconscious is open. And in that gentle interval, you can choose a new identity and fall asleep wearing it. Think of what that means. You can go to sleep as one person and awaken with the beginnings of another. Not because the outer world has changed overnight, but because the seed has been planted in the only place where change truly begins. Now I want you to feel the difference between I want and I am. Not as a concept, but as a sensation. I want feels like reaching. It feels like leaning forward. It feels like a slight ache, a slight strain, a subtle confession of emptiness. I am feels like settling back. It feels like sitting down. It feels like a quiet ownership. It feels like relief. It feels like belonging. If you are listening now and your body is growing heavier, notice how naturally I am belongs to this state. The body knows how to accept. The body knows how to rest. It is the mind that keeps reaching. So you let the body teach the mind. You let the heaviness, the slowness, the softness become the atmosphere of I am. And what you are doing without strain is entering the end. Because the end is always a state of I am. The end is not a future event. The end is a present identity. If you were truly free, you would not say, I want freedom. You would simply be free in feeling. If you were truly loved, you would not say, I want love. You would feel loved. If you were truly provided for, you would not say, I want money. You would rest in the feeling of being supplied. So the question becomes very tender, very intimate. Can you let yourself be, inwardly, what you have been wanting to be? Not by forcing belief, but by choosing identity. And this is where people often hesitate, because they think identity must be justified. They think they must earn the right to say I am. They think they must show proof before they claim the state. But proof is not the cause. Proof is the echo. Identity is the voice. If you wait for proof to claim the identity, you have reversed the law. You have made the effect the cause. You have said, when the mirror changes, then I will change my face. But the mirror cannot change first. So you change the face. You change the inner sense of self. You change what you accept as true in your own consciousness. And then, slowly or quickly, gently or suddenly, the mirror rearranges. Now let me speak of self-concept in a way that will make it simple. Your self-concept is not what you say you are in polite conversation. It is what feels natural to you. It is what you return to. It is what you expect without thinking. It is what you assume, even in silence, even without words. A woman may say, I am confident, but if she secretly expects rejection, her self-concept is not confidence. Her self-concept is rejection, and life will mirror the expectation, not as punishment, but as obedience. So do not judge yourself by what you say you want. Judge the state you return to when you are alone, and then, gently, choose a new state. How do you choose it? Not by wrestling, not by trying to fix yourself, but by entering the feeling of the new identity in imagination. If you desire to be the one who is always supported, then tonight you fall asleep with the feeling, I am supported. Not loudly, not desperately, but quietly, as though it were simply true. If you desire to be the one who is always chosen, then tonight you enter the mood, I am chosen. You do not plead for it. You do not beg the world to agree. You simply wear it inwardly. You let it soften you. You let it become familiar, and you will know you are doing it correctly by the signs we have spoken of. Calm, absence of urgency, naturalness. If you feel frantic, you are still in I want. If you feel that quiet settling, you are moving into I am. This is why the night self is the true self. Because the night does not tolerate frantic pretending for long. The body grows heavy. The mind fades. The only thing that remains is feeling. And feeling reveals identity. So tonight, let your identity be chosen deliberately. Not as an effort, but as a gentle decision. You may have lived for years with an identity you never chose. You may have inherited it from childhood, from disappointment, from harsh words spoken over you, from repeated failures, from fear. You may have accepted an I am that was never true, and because you accepted it, life reflected it. You may have called yourself unlucky, unworthy, unseen, too late, too old, too broken, too far gone. And life, being faithful, mirrored that label. But the moment you change the label inwardly, life must change. This is not mere encouragement. This is law. It may not change in the hour you demand. It may not come in the form you imagine. But it will change, because you have moved the cause. So I say to you now, as your eyes grow heavier, as the mind becomes softer, stop making your desire a distant object. Make it an identity. Stop speaking from I want. Speak from I am. And if you wonder what to attach to I am, attach only what you would love to experience as your natural life. Attach peace. Attach safety. Attach love. Attach freedom. Attach wholeness. Attach being guided. Attach being provided for. Do not attach struggle. Do not attach delay. Do not attach fear. Because whatever you attach becomes your world. Now perhaps the old mind will rise and say, but it feels false. Of course it feels false at first. Every new room feels unfamiliar the first time you enter. Every new garment feels strange until you wear it. The question is not whether it feels familiar immediately. The question is whether you will dwell in it long enough for it to become home. The subconscious learns by dwelling. It learns by repetition. It learns by what you fall asleep in again and again. So do not demand instant naturalness. Allow naturalness to grow. Return nightly. Return gently. Return gently. Return as you would return to your home. And soon the new identity will feel more real than the old, because the old will begin to fade from lack of attention. That is a great secret. What you do not feed weakens. What you feed strengthens. If you stop feeding the old I am, it loses its power. If you feed the new I am, it takes root, and what takes root becomes your harvest. This is why the universe begins to do the work when you rest, because resting in the new identity is the act of feeding it. Rest is not inactivity. Rest is agreement. Rest is the declaration. Without words, this is who I am now, and the world must conform. Now I will leave you with a simple thought, one that your deeper self can carry into sleep, not as pressure, but as peace. Tonight, you do not need to want. Tonight, you can be. Tonight, let your last confession be, I am, joined to what you have been seeking. Let it be soft. Let it be quiet. Let it be tender. Let it be felt. And if you fall asleep in that feeling, you have done the work that matters most, because you do not manifest what you want. You manifest what you assume you are. Now, my friends, we come to a portion of this talk that is not meant to excite you, but to carry you. Up to this point, I have spoken of rest, of faith as the quiet acceptance of the end, of imagination as the only creative workshop, and of the night as the gentle doorway where the deeper mind receives impressions without resistance. I have asked you to release the how and the when, to stop supervising and to become rather than to want. And now, with all of that laid softly in place, I want to give you something you can use in the most natural way possible. Not as a performance, not as a complicated practice, but as a simple inner experience that will do its work even if you drift into sleep while it is happening. Because what I am about to guide you through is designed for the subconscious. It is designed for that deeper self which listens when the surface mind grows quiet. It is designed for the portion of you that accepts feeling as fact and then builds the world to match. And if you allow it, without strain, without trying, these guided imaginal acts will have an incredibly powerful effect upon your subconscious. Not by force, but by law. You may not remember every word when you awaken. You may not even remember that you listened. Yet you will have been impressed. A seed will have been planted. And what is planted in the depths of the subconscious, when it is planted in the state of sleep, grows silently and surely. So take this gently. There is nothing here to struggle with. You are not required to concentrate fiercely. You are not required to stay awake. In fact, if you fall asleep, that is a good sign, for it means you have slipped into the very state where the impression is most easily received. Now I want you to consider something for a moment, and let it soothe you. The conscious mind tries to do everything. It tries to manage, to calculate, to protect, to control. But the subconscious is the faithful servant. It does not need your supervision. It needs only a clear impression. It needs the feeling of the wish fulfilled, accepted as real. And that is what this first guided visualization will give you. It is called Fall Asleep in the Wish Fulfilled. And the name itself tells you the secret. You are not falling asleep hoping. You are falling asleep having. You are not falling asleep reaching. You are falling asleep resting in possession. You are not falling asleep as the old self who waits and worries. You are falling asleep as the new self who has already received. This is not fantasy. This is not pretending. This is occupying a state. And remember, creation is finished. The state exists. You are simply entering it. So as we begin, allow your body to do what it naturally knows how to do. Let it become heavier. Let your jaw soften. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your breath become slower, as though you are breathing out the entire day. If thoughts come, let them come. Do not chase them. Do not fight them. Thoughts are like birds passing across the sky. Let them pass. Your sky remains. If you are sitting, you may feel yourself wanting to lie down. If you are already lying down, let the bed hold you completely. You do not need to hold yourself. Now I want you to bring to mind, very gently, one thing that you desire. Not 10 things, not a long list, just one. Something that, if it were true, would bring you a quiet relief. Something that would soften you. Something that would make you breathe differently. It may be peace in your home. It may be harmony in a relationship. It may be the settling of a matter that has been weighing on you. It may be financial relief. It may be a sense of being truly loved, truly chosen, truly safe. Choose one, and do not force it. Let it choose you if you like. Let the heart point to what feels most tender, most ready to be healed, most ready to be fulfilled. Now, once you have chosen, do not begin to think of how it will happen. Do not think of the steps. Do not think of the distance. We are not dealing with the bridge of incidents now. We are dealing with the end. So ask yourself softly, not with strain, but with curiosity. If this were already done, if this were already settled, if this were already mine, how would I feel? Do not answer with words first. Let the body answer. Let the chest answer. Let the breath answer. Let the shoulders answer. If it were done, you would not be tight. If it were done, you would not be bracing. If it were done, you would not be scanning the horizon. You would soften. You would exhale. You would feel a quiet relief, like putting down a weight you have carried too long. So now, let yourself feel that relief. Not because you have evidence, but because you have accepted the state. You are stepping into the room of fulfillment, and the room has an atmosphere. It has a scent, as every room does. It has a temperature. It has a feeling tone. Let that feeling tone come over you now. If your desire were fulfilled, there would be a certain ease in your body. Perhaps your forehead would smooth. Perhaps your breath would deepen. Perhaps your stomach would unclench. Perhaps you would feel safe enough to stop monitoring every thought. Allow that ease. Now I will invite you to do something that the subconscious understands better than any explanation. I want you to imagine a single short moment that implies the wish is already fulfilled, not a long story, not a journey, just a moment after it is done. For example, if what you desire is relief, imagine the moment you realize it is finished. If what you desire is love, imagine the moment you feel warmly held, securely chosen. If what you desire is peace, imagine the moment you look around and you notice, without surprise, that everything is calm. The scene may be as simple as hearing a voice say to you, "It worked out perfectly." Or it may be your own voice, quietly saying, "Thank you, it is done." Or it may be something physical, like reading a short line on a letter that confirms your good news. Not paragraphs, one line, simple, clear, final. Now enter that scene gently, as though you are stepping into warm water. Do not watch it from afar. Be there. See from your own eyes. Hear from your own ears. Feel it as though it is happening now. If you have chosen to hear a voice, then hear it with warmth. Hear the tone. Hear the certainty in it. Hear the ease. Let it land in you. If you have chosen to see a letter, see the paper. See the words. Let your eyes rest upon that single line. That means everything is resolved. And feel what you would feel if it were true. If you have chosen an embrace, then feel it. Feel the warmth. Feel the steadiness. Feel the safety of it, like coming home. Now repeat this short scene, not with force, not rapidly, gently, like rocking. Again and again, the same simple moment, and each time you repeat it, let it become more natural. Let it become less like imagining and more like remembering. Because you are not trying to make yourself believe, you are allowing the state to feel familiar. And familiarity is the gateway of the subconscious. The subconscious accepts what feels natural. So do not worry if it feels faint at first. That is normal. The old state has been worn for a long time. The new state is like a new garment. At first it feels unfamiliar, but the more you wear it, the more it becomes yours. So we wear it now, gently. Repeat the scene, feel it. And if your mind wanders, return without frustration. The return is the practice, not the perfection. And notice as you repeat that the body begins to respond. Perhaps you sigh. Perhaps you soften more. Perhaps a little smile comes without effort. Perhaps a sense of quiet gratitude begins to rise, not forced but natural. If gratitude comes, let it come. Gratitude is the fragrance of possession. It is the sign that the state is being accepted. It is the whisper of the subconscious saying, yes, this is true. So if you feel moved to whisper, thank you, let it be quiet, let it be natural, let it be the gentle response of one who has already received. Now if sleep is coming, do not resist it. Let sleep take you while you are still in the wish fulfilled. That is the secret, to fall asleep while the end is present in you. For what you feel as you fall asleep becomes law. The last feeling of the night is the seed the subconscious takes into itself. And that seed grows without your effort. It grows in silence. It grows in secret. It grows through the bridge of incidents you cannot plan. It grows while you rest. So let your final mood be the mood of completion. Not I hope, not maybe, not when, but it is done. If you are still awake, continue to repeat the scene gently. Let it be the lullaby of your mind. Let it soothe you. Let it slow you. Let it quiet every argument. And if you are asleep, then your deeper mind is receiving it as a command. It is being impressed. It is being planted. It is being accepted. You do not need to stay awake to make it work. You only need to feel it, however softly, before sleep takes you. Now I want you to rest in the simplicity of this. Do not add complication. Do not add fear. Do not add the old habit of supervision. Tonight, you have given the subconscious a new seed, and the subconscious is faithful. It will take what you have accepted, and it will express it in your world. It may come in a way you did not expect. It may arrive through a door you did not know existed. It may unfold naturally, quietly, almost ordinarily. But it will come, because you have entered the state. So let the body rest. Let the mind drift. Let the end remain. Let the wish fulfilled be your pillow. And as you sink deeper into sleep, let this be the only truth your inner being holds. It is done. It is already done. And I am at rest in it. My friends, we move now into a gentler and even more secret chamber of the mind. So gentle, in fact, that many pass through it every night and never realize they have crossed a threshold at all. Yet if you learn to recognize this doorway and enter it deliberately, you will find it has a power that feels almost unfair in its simplicity. There is a moment before sleep when the world loosens its grip on you. You are not fully awake, yet you are not asleep. You can still hear my voice, but you may also notice that thoughts begin to drift, not in sharp lines, but in soft shapes. The body becomes heavy. The eyes want to close. The breath deepens, and the mind that argues begins to quiet, as though it has grown tired of its own debating. That moment is precious. I have called it the state akin to sleep, not to make it into a mysterious phrase, but to name something real that you have already experienced. It is the twilight of consciousness. It is the gentle doorway before sleep. Now do not make it hard. Do not try to get into this state as though it were distant. You are in it more often than you think. In fact, you may be in it now. If your eyelids feel heavy, if your body is sinking, if the edges of thought are softening, then you are near it. This is the state where the subconscious is most receptive. In the bright light of day, the conscious mind stands like a watchman, questioning every suggestion. It says, that is not true. That is not possible. That does not match the facts. It clings to the old story, even when the old story has hurt you. And because it clings, you may imagine your desire for a moment, but the watchman quickly drags you back into doubt. But in the drowsy state, the watchman grows quiet. The arguments fade, and the deeper mind opens, ready to receive. That is why this doorway is gentle. It does not require strain. It does not require willpower. It does not require a loud declaration. It requires only that you enter it with a certain mood and let that mood sink into you. Tonight you are not here to force anything. You are here to impress a feeling, because the subconscious does not reason. It accepts, it receives the feeling as fact, and then it arranges your world accordingly. So let us approach this doorway the way you would approach a sleeping child. You do not shake the child awake to teach him. You do not shout instructions. You speak softly. You bring the feeling of safety. You let the child drift, and the child receives your presence. So now, in the same way, we will speak softly to your subconscious through a simple imaginal act. Whether you remain awake or drift into sleep, it will receive. Now I want you to prepare the body first, because the body is the gatekeeper to this state. When the body is tense, the mind is tense. When the body softens, the mind softens. So let the body be allowed to rest. If you are lying down, let the bed support you completely. Let your shoulders sink. Let your hands rest where they are comfortable. Let your jaw loosen. Let your tongue soften in the mouth. Let the breath become slow, as though each breath is a quiet permission to release. If you are seated, allow the body to become heavy even there. Your head may feel as though it would like to bow slightly. Let it. There is nothing you must hold up. Now do not try to stop thoughts. Thoughts are not the problem. It is the feeling behind them that creates. So if a thought passes, let it pass like a cloud. You remain. What matters is the mood you are cultivating. The mood is the seed. Now I will ask you to choose one desire again, just one. Not because you are limited, but because simplicity impresses more deeply. A scattered mind plants scattered seeds. A single focused feeling plants a living seed that grows. Choose the one thing that would bring you the deepest relief. Relief is important, because relief is the natural feeling of the wish fulfilled. Relief is the sign that the matter is already settled. It may be a relationship restored. It may be a burden lifted. It may be health renewed. It may be financial ease. It may be peace in the home, peace in the mind. Choose it, and then gently stop thinking about how it will happen. You are not here to solve it. You are here to assume it is solved. Now here is where the doorway becomes clear. In the state akin to sleep, you do not build complicated scenes. You do not write long scripts. You choose one short imaginal act that implies the end is already true. What would you do if it were already done? Would you read a message that confirms it? Would you hear a familiar voice saying, "It worked out perfectly"? Would you look at something that signifies completion? Would you feel a ring on your finger? Would you see a statement, a letter, a receipt marked paid? Would you feel your body moving freely and easily? Would you feel yourself embraced? Choose one. And once you choose, keep it short, a few seconds, a single moment. Because the subconscious does not need length. It needs reality. It needs the tones of truth. Now begin to enter that moment. Do not watch yourself as though from across the room. Be in your own body. See through your own eyes. Hear through your own ears. Feel as you would feel. If it is a voice, hear it close. Hear the warmth in it. Hear the certainty. If it is a letter, feel the paper. See the words. Let your eyes rest on the one line that means the struggle is over. If it is an embrace, feel the arms around you. Feel the steadiness. Feel your own body relax in response. Now repeat the act, again and again and again. But do it gently, as though you are rocking yourself into sleep. There is no urgency here. The urgency belongs to the old state, the state that doubts and rushes. The new state moves slowly, because it is already safe. Now you may notice a change. As you repeat the scene, the body may respond. A sigh may come. A softness may spread. The heart may feel lighter. The mind may stop insisting on questions. This is the doorway opening. You are becoming receptive, and receptivity is power. Now I want you to understand something very important. In this state, the subconscious does not distinguish between a thing imagined and a thing physically present. It distinguishes only by feeling. If you feel it as real, it is real to the subconscious. And what is real to the subconscious must become real to the outer world, because the outer world is the outpicturing of the subconscious. This is why you do not need to believe with strain. Strain is the mark of the conscious mind arguing. But in this state, belief becomes a feeling. It becomes a quiet acceptance. It becomes naturalness. Naturalness is the seal. So as you repeat the scene, do not attempt to excite yourself. Do not attempt to force emotion. Simply allow the scene to produce what it naturally would produce if it were true. If it were done, you would feel relief. If it were done, you would feel a quiet gratitude. If it were done, you would feel a softness, a settling. So let that happen. Now perhaps the mind says, but this is just imagination. Yes, and imagination is the only reality. The visible world is only imagination made solid. So do not speak to yourself as though imagination were weak. Do not treat your inner act as play. Treat it as the planting of a seed in the richest soil, because that is exactly what it is. And the state akin to sleep is the richest soil you have. Now here is a gentle instruction, not a rule, but a guiding principle. Do not try to make the scene perfect. Perfection is another form of control. Control is another form of fear. You are not here to control. You are here to receive. If the scene flickers, it is all right. If you lose it, return. If it changes slightly, let it. If you feel yourself drifting, let yourself drift. Because drifting is the point. You want the scene to carry you into sleep. If you fall asleep while you are still in the act, you have succeeded. Because the subconscious has received the feeling as the last impression. That last impression is the command. Now I will speak directly to the deeper self in you, the subconscious, because it is listening in a way that the surface mind does not understand. Subconscious mind, you are hearing me now. You are receiving the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You are receiving the impression of completion. You accept it as fact. You begin now to arrange the bridge of incidents. You begin now to move life into harmony with this state. You accept the end, and therefore the end must come. Now, return again to your scene. Do not hurry, let it be like a lullaby. Repeat it until it begins to feel like remembering. And as it begins to feel like remembering, you may notice that you no longer have to make it happen. It happens on its own. The scene arises, the feeling comes, the body responds, the mind grows quiet. That is the state akin to sleep. Now, let me share with you why this is so powerful in the simplest terms. In the waking state, you are too aware of the outer world. You are too aware of what seems missing. You are too aware of the past. The past shouts. The senses insist. And so you may imagine for a moment, but then the old state returns. But at the edge of sleep, the outer world fades. The past loses its grip, and the new state can be impressed deeply, without argument. That is why one short imaginal act at night can do more than hours of strained effort in the day, because the seed goes in deeper, and a seed planted deep grows strong. Now you may wonder, must I do this every night? If you want it to become natural quickly, yes, return nightly, not out of fear, not out of desperation, but out of familiarity. You return not to force the manifestation, but to wear the state until it feels like you. The subconscious accepts what you habitually wear, so you wear it gently. Night after night, you return to the scene that implies fulfillment, and you allow it to carry you into sleep, and the world, in its own natural way, begins to mirror it. Now I want to speak of one subtle trap people fall into, and I speak of it now so you do not stumble. They do the imaginal act at night, and then in the day they search for signs. They measure, they check, they test the world, as though the world must prove itself immediately. But the world is the echo. It will echo. Do not demand that the echo happen the moment you speak. Allow it its natural delay. If you keep turning your head to listen for the echo, you will miss the calm certainty that is the real cause. So after you do this, move through the day as gently as possible. When doubt arises, do not wrestle it. Return to your state. Remember the relief. Remember the end. Whisper inwardly, "It is done." And then go on. The bridge will form. The universe will arrange. Now return again one more time to the feeling, because this is the core of Sats, the gentle doorway before sleep. Feel the end. Feel it done. Feel the relief. And if your eyes are closing, let them close. If your thoughts are becoming dreamlike, let them become dreamlike. You are entering the doorway. Now I will offer you a simple phrase to accompany your scene, not as an affirmation you repeat with strain, but as a soft undercurrent, like the hum of a lamp in the room. It is done. You may whisper it inwardly as you repeat the scene, or you may simply feel it without words. The words are not the power. The feeling is. But sometimes the words help the feeling. So let "it is done" be like a gentle hand on your shoulder as you drift. Now notice how different this is from begging. Notice how different this is from effort. Notice how different this is from worrying. You are not trying to convince a distant God. You are not trying to force the world. You are simply entering a state, and that state, once entered, must externalize. This is why it is gentle. It is not a battle. It is a doorway. And once you step through, you do not need to push. The other side is already there. Creation is finished. Nothing is created. Everything is occupied. So occupy it now, softly, with no urgency. And if sleep takes you, let it take you in the end. Let the final impression on the subconscious be the wish fulfilled. Let the final mood be relief. Let the final identity be the one who has already received. And then, without your supervision, the subconscious will do its work. It will move the pieces. It will draw the events. It will shape the conversations, the meetings, the opportunities, the changes. It will build the bridge. It will bring the outer world into harmony with the inner act. All because you entered the gentle doorway before sleep. So rest now. Repeat your scene. Feel it real. And drift. Because what you feel as you fall asleep becomes law. My friends, we move now into a gentle passage that many have longed for without knowing how to enter it. For there are nights when the body is tired, the room is quiet, and yet the mind will not loosen its grip. It replays the same concerns, the same questions, the same fears, as though by rehearsing them it could prevent them. And so you lie there, longing to rest, but the mind keeps watch like a nervous guard. Tonight, I want to show you something kinder. I want to lead you, without force and without struggle, from anxiety to certainty, in one night. Not by suppressing thought, not by fighting yourself, but by entering a different state. For you do not conquer anxiety by wrestling it. You outgrow it by moving into the feeling of being safe, the feeling of being guided, the feeling of the end already secured. And as I speak, I want you to remember what you already know now. Whether you are awake, half awake, or drifting into sleep, I am speaking to your subconscious. Your deeper mind hears the tone behind the words. It receives the feeling. It accepts the atmosphere. So if your eyes close, if your breath slows, if you slip into sleep, you have not missed anything. You are receiving it in the only way it truly needs to be received. So settle yourself, as best you can, without trying. Let the bed hold you, or let the chair support you. Let the jaw soften, let the jaw soften, let the tongue rest in the mouth, let the shoulders loosen, even a little. If there is tightness, do not fight it. Simply allow the idea that tightness can melt. Now notice your breathing. You do not need to change it at first. Just notice it as though you were watching the tide. Breathing is a quiet miracle, and it has been faithful to you all your life without your supervision. Let that remind you of something. There is an unseen order at work in you already. You have never been truly alone, even in your most fearful moments. Something has been carrying you, and it is carrying you now. If you have come to this visualization with a specific anxiety, let it be named gently, without drama. You do not need to describe it in detail. A simple acknowledgement is enough. It may be a matter you cannot control, a decision you dread, a conversation you fear, a health concern, a financial burden, a feeling of being behind or unsafe or uncertain about tomorrow. Whatever it is, Let it be present for a moment without resistance, as though you were holding a small stone in your hand. Now I want you to do something different than the anxious mind expects. The anxious mind expects you to stare at the stone, to measure it, to imagine it growing heavier, to ask how you will carry it. But instead, I want you to feel the hand beneath your hand, the hand of the unseen order, the quiet strength within you that does not argue. Because anxiety, my friends, is not power. Anxiety is a state, and states can be entered and left. You have lived in states of joy. You have lived in states of confidence. You have lived in states of peace. You have also lived in states of fear. The fear felt real when you were in it, but it was not the truth of you. It was a room you occupied. Tonight we leave that room, and we do it the simplest way, by entering the state that would be yours if this were already solved. Not solved tomorrow, not solved in a month, solved now in consciousness. Now ask yourself softly. Do not answer quickly. So tomorrow quickly. What would you feel if this anxiety no longer had authority over you? What would the body feel like if the matter was settled? If you knew, truly knew, that it was handled, that the outcome was secured, that life had already arranged the path? You may notice that the body longs for one thing above all: relief, a release of pressure, a loosening in the chest, a softening in the stomach, a quietness behind the eyes. So let relief be allowed, not forced, allowed. And if your mind says, but nothing has changed, I want you to answer in the gentlest way possible. Something has changed. I have changed my state. The outer world is slow. It echoes the past. But the inner world is immediate. And what is immediate within you is the only cause. Now take a slow breath in, as though you are breathing in safety, and breathe out, as though you are exhaling supervision. You are not exhaling life, only the need to control it. Let the exhale be a quiet surrender. Again breathe in, and feel the chest expand. Breathe out, and feel the shoulders drop. And if your breath trembles, let it tremble. We are not demanding perfection. We are allowing movement. Now I want you to imagine something very small and very simple. Not the whole story. Not the entire chain of events. Only the end, expressed in one gentle moment. Imagine that you awaken tomorrow morning, and the first thing you notice is not anxiety. The first thing you notice is calm. A calm so ordinary that it almost surprises you. You sit up, or you remain lying down, and you feel the difference in your body. The chest is not tight. The stomach is not knotted. The mind is not racing ahead. There is a quiet steadiness. Let yourself feel that as real as though you are tasting it now. And now add one detail. Not a complicated detail. Just one sign that the matter is settled. Perhaps it is your own inner voice saying, very simply, it worked out. Perhaps it is a small smile that comes naturally. Perhaps it is the feeling of stretching freely, as though the body is no longer bracing. Perhaps it is a memory of the worry that feels distant, as though it belonged to someone else. Now remain there, in that morning calm, and let it become vivid. Feel the sheet or blanket. Feel the air in the room. Hear the quiet of the house. Notice how different the silence feels when it is not filled with dread. The same silence that once frightened you now becomes a sanctuary. Now very gently, I want you to allow the old anxiety to appear, not as something threatening, but as something already losing its power. Imagine that it tries to knock at the door of your mind, as it has before. It brings the same questions, the same doubts, the same what if. But now, in this scene, you do not answer it with argument. You do not fight it, you do not negotiate with it, you simply remain in calm. And you say, inwardly, softly, no, I am certain. Feel what that certainty does to the body. Certainty is not loud, it is not dramatic. Certainty is the absence of needing to prove. Certainty is the quiet, knowing that does not require the senses to agree. Now let certainty settle into you like warm water. If your mind tries to rush, return to the breath. If your mind tries to ask how this will be possible, remember the how is not your work. Your work is the state. The state is certainty. So we cultivate it now as though we were cultivating a lamp in a dark room. The lamp does not fight the darkness. It simply shines. Let your certainty shine. Now I will speak directly to your subconscious, because it is listening and it is receptive. Subconscious mind, you are safe. You are guided, you are held. The anxious state is not your home. The state of certainty is your home. You accept now the feeling of certainty as a fact. You accept the end as done. You accept peace as your natural condition. You accept solutions as inevitable. You accept safety as yours. Now return again to your morning scene. Feel it, live it, and let it imply something very important. The universe has already done the work. The unseen order has already arranged the solution. You are no longer trying to force life. You are simply receiving what has been prepared. If it helps you, imagine that somewhere behind the curtain of appearances, pieces are moving. Not chaotically, but perfectly. People are being stirred, doors are opening, ideas are forming, events are aligning. You do not see it, and you do not need to see it. You only need to know it, by feeling. And that feeling is certainty. Now let me give you a gentle contrast that the subconscious understands. Anxiety feels like leaning forward, like reaching, like bracing. Certainty feels like leaning back, like being held, like resting. So allow yourself to lean back inside. Allow yourself to be supported by the end. If tears come, let them come. Sometimes the body cries not because it is sad, but because it is releasing. Sometimes the tears are simply the water of an old state leaving. Now I want you to take the anxiety you brought in, the stone you held, and imagine placing it down, not throwing it away in anger, not denying it existed, simply placing it down, as you would place down a burden at the end of a long journey. And then imagine turning away from it, not in fear, but in freedom, and walking into a room that represents certainty. This room is quiet. There is a sense of order here. Everything is in its place. The air is gentle. There is nothing to chase, nothing to fix, nothing to prove, only the feeling of already done. Now in this room, speak a simple inner decree. Do not make it complicated. Let it be the language the subconscious loves. Present tense, I am safe. Or, it is resolved. Or, it is already arranged. Choose one phrase, and let it be your anchor. Speak it inwardly, and then feel what it means. Do not repeat it like a machine. Let it awaken the state. Now let the body respond. If you are safe, the shoulders soften. If it is resolved, the stomach unclenches. If it is arranged, the breath slows. Let your body become the proof. Now you may hear faintly the old voice of anxiety saying, "But what if?" And here is your gentle answer, repeated without strain. It is already done. Then return to the scene of calm. Return to the room of certainty. Return to the breath that belongs to a safe person. If the mind wanders, bring it back as though you are guiding a child, not harshly, kindly, again and again. The return is the practice. Now I will offer you a short imaginal act that many have used with great effect, because it is simple and it implies the end. Imagine hearing someone you trust say to you, "I'm so glad it worked out." Hear the warmth in their voice. Hear the ease. Hear the finality. No drama, no suspense. It worked out. Let those words land in your chest like a blessing. Now hear yourself answer, naturally, "Yes, it did." And notice what happens. When you answer like that, you are no longer hoping. You are confirming. You are living after the fact. You are living in the end. Repeat this tiny exchange gently, again and again. Let it be like a lullaby. I'm so glad it worked out. Yes, it did. And each time, let your certainty deepen. Now if sleep is coming, let it come. Let the scene carry you into sleep. Let the final words you hear be the words of completion. Let the final feeling be the feeling of certainty. Because what you feel as you fall asleep becomes law. Now there is something else I want you to understand. because it will free you from a common fear. Many are afraid that one anxious thought will ruin everything. They say, if I feel anxious, have I undone it? No, my friend, a thought passing through is not the same as a state occupied. The state is what you dwell in. The state is what you return to. The state is what you accept as home. So if anxiety arises, do not panic. Panic is simply anxiety multiplied. Instead, treat it as an old habit knocking at the door. You do not have to invite it in. You simply return to certainty, and you will find, over time, sometimes very quickly, that the old habit weakens from lack of attention. The subconscious learns the new pattern. The new pattern becomes natural, and what becomes natural becomes your world. Now I want you to imagine, just for a moment, what it would mean to awaken tomorrow and feel that your mind is not against you. Imagine how different the day would be if you were not fighting your own thoughts. Imagine how different your body would feel if it were not braced for trouble. That is not a distant dream. It is a state, and you can occupy it now. So let certainty become your garment tonight. Put it on inwardly. Feel its texture. Feel its warmth, and drift into sleep wearing it. Now, as we come to the deeper portion of this visualization, I want to speak to the subconscious once more, slowly and clearly, like a benediction. Subconscious mind, you are receptive now. You accept peace. You accept certainty. You accept that the matter is settled. You accept that you are guided. You accept that the unseen order is arranging everything perfectly. You accept that there is no need to supervise. You accept that what is yours is already yours. You accept that anxiety is not your identity. Certainty is your identity. Calm is your home. Relief is your natural state. Now return again to your simple scene. It does not need to change. Simplicity is power. Hear the words, I'm so glad it worked out, and answer, yes, it did. Feel the relief. Feel the quiet joy. Feel the ordinary peace of a problem solved. Repeat it, and let the repetition soften you further. And if you fall asleep in the wish fulfilled. You fall asleep in certainty. You fall asleep in the end. And the subconscious, faithful to what it receives, begins its work. Not tomorrow, now. It begins to build the bridge of incidents. It begins to arrange the outer world to match the inner law. It begins to move you gently, naturally, toward the very outcome you have accepted. So rest. Let your breath slow. Let your mind drift. Let certainty remain like a quiet flame. And as sleep takes you, let these final words be true in you. True in feeling. True in atmosphere. True in the deep place that creates. It is already arranged. It is already done. And I am safe to rest. My friends, if you have come to this moment with a tender heart, I want you to know that you are safe here. There is nothing you must prove. There is nothing you must earn. You do not have to perform for love, or chase it, or bargain for it. Tonight we are not reaching outward. We are moving inward, to the only place love is ever born. And as I speak, I am speaking to the deeper self in you. Whether your eyes remain open or close, whether you are fully awake or drifting, the subconscious is listening. It understands feeling. It understands atmosphere. It understands the quiet inner acceptance that says, this is true. So if sleep comes, let it come. You will not miss what matters. What matters will sink into you. Now allow your body to settle. Let the bed carry you. If you feel your shoulders holding tension, let them soften as though they are being forgiven for trying so hard. Let your jaw loosen. Let your forehead smooth. Let your hands rest where they want to rest. And let your breath become gentle, not forced, but unhurried. Like a tide that has all the time in the world. I want you to notice something very simple. When the heart is anxious about love, the body tightens. The chest grows guarded. The stomach clenches. The mind begins to rehearse old stories. Times you were overlooked, misunderstood, abandoned, or made to feel small. The mind does this thinking it is protecting you. But it is not protecting you. It is only keeping you faithful to an old state. Tonight we do not fight that old state. We simply leave it. and we leave it by entering a new feeling, the feeling of being deeply loved, not admired for a moment, not tolerated, not chosen reluctantly, deeply loved, securely loved, loved in a way that allows you to exhale. Now some will say, Neville, I do not know how to feel that. I have not felt it in a long time. My dear friend, you do not need a history of love to enter the state. You only need willingness to occupy it now, for the state exists. Creation is finished. The room of being loved is already in the house of consciousness. You are not creating love from nothing. You are stepping into the feeling of it as a present fact. So let us begin gently. Do not force emotion. Do not try to make tears come or joy come. Simply allow the idea of love to approach you without suspicion. Like a warm light entering a room that has been dark. You do not have to chase the light. You only have to stop hiding from it. Now ask yourself softly, as though you were speaking to a child inside you. If I were deeply loved, how would it feel in my body? Would the chest be guarded? No, it would open. Would the breath be tight? No, it would deepen. Would the stomach be clenched? No, it would soften. Would the mind be scanning for danger? No, it would rest. So allow the body to practice that now. You are not pretending. You are training the nervous system to accept a new state. You are letting the flesh learn what the soul already knows. Love is natural. Take a slow breath in. And as you breathe in, imagine you are breathing in warmth. Not air alone, but warmth. As you breathe out, imagine you are releasing the old armor, the old bracing, the old need to anticipate disappointment. Again, breathe in warmth. Breathe out the armor. Now in this gentle quietness, I want you to imagine a simple scene. Not a long story, not a journey, just one short moment that implies you are already deeply loved. The subconscious does not require length. It requires reality. It requires the tones of truth. So we choose one simple act that carries the whole end within it. Perhaps it is the feel of an embrace. Not a hurried embrace, but an embrace that lingers, that says without words, you are safe with me. Perhaps it is the sound of a voice speaking your name with tenderness. Perhaps it is your hand resting in another hand, steady and warm, and you feel that you are not alone. Perhaps it is a quiet sentence spoken to you, simple, ordinary, and yet it changes everything. Choose one. If it helps you, let it be this. Imagine hearing someone say, very naturally, I love you. I am so grateful you are in my life. Hear it without drama. Hear it as something obvious, something true, something that does not need to be proved because it is already established. Now do not watch this scene from afar. Enter it. Be there. Hear with your own ears. Feel with your own body. If it is an embrace, feel the pressure of arms around you. Feel the warmth through clothing. Feel the steadiness. If it is a voice, hear the tone. Not merely the words, but the tone, the sincerity, the softness, the safety in it. If it is a hand held, feel the gentle weight of the other hand, the comfort of contact, the quiet message. You are chosen. Now let your body respond as it would if this were happening now. Perhaps you sigh. Perhaps your chest softens. Perhaps your eyes grow heavier. Perhaps there is a small sweetness in the heart. Let it be natural. Let it be simple. Now repeat the scene gently, again and again. Not quickly, not like a machine, but like a lullaby. Each repetition is not effort. Each repetition is dwelling. And dwelling is how a state becomes natural. As you repeat, you may notice the mind trying to interrupt. It may bring up an old memory, an old fear, an old sentence you once believed about yourself. I'm not enough. I'm too much. People leave. Love doesn't last. I'm always the one who gives. I'm invisible. Do not fight those thoughts. Fighting gives them life. Instead, do what you would do if you were already deeply loved. You would not argue with the old voice. You would simply remain in the new feeling. You would let the old voice fade like a sound heard from another room. So when the old thought arises, return to the embrace, return to the voice, return to the hand held, return to the warmth, return to the end. This is how you change self-concept, not by debate, but by occupancy. Now I want you to deepen the feeling in a way that is very gentle. Imagine that this love is not fragile. Imagine it is not something you must protect by vigilance. Imagine it is steady. Imagine it is safe enough that you can relax completely inside it. If you were deeply loved, you would not be bracing for loss. You would not be rehearsing goodbye. You would not be preparing yourself for disappointment. You would rest in a quiet confidence that says, I am wanted. I am valued. I am chosen. I belong. So let those qualities become present in you now, not as declarations you shout, but as a soft, inner knowing. You may whisper inwardly, very quietly, I am loved, and then let the words fade, and let the feeling remain. Now let me tell you something important. The subconscious does not respond to your longing for love. It responds to your acceptance of being loved. Longing is the state of absence. Acceptance is the state of possession. And it is possession that hardens into fact. So if you find yourself yearning, gently return to having. Return to the feeling that it is already true. Return to the simple scene as though it has already happened. You are not asking for love. You are living in it. Now, some may have pain here. You may feel grief, or regret, or a sense that you have missed something. If that happens, do not turn away. Simply allow the pain to soften under the presence of love. Love does not accuse. Love does not punish. Love heals. So if a memory rises, you may revise it without strain. You may imagine that, where you once felt alone, you are now comforted. Where you once felt rejected, you are now understood. Where you once heard harsh words, you now hear kindness. Do not force the revision. Simply let the new scene replace the old, the way dawn replaces night, quietly, naturally, without argument. Now return again to your chosen scene of being deeply loved, and let it become even simpler. Let it become pure feeling. Perhaps you no longer need the words. Perhaps you no longer need a face. Perhaps you only need the sensation, the warmth in the chest, the softness in the breath, the quiet safety in the body, the gentle certainty that says, I am held. Because the state of being loved is not dependent on a particular person. It is a state. It is an atmosphere. It is a garment you can wear inwardly. And when you wear it, the world must reflect it in form, in ways you may not predict. Now I will speak plainly and gently. You will never be able to receive love in its fullness if you insist on holding the identity of the unloved. The world cannot contradict your deepest assumption. So tonight, you are changing that assumption. You are leaving the old identity. You are moving into the new, and you will know you are moving into it not by excitement, but by relief. The body will begin to act like someone who is loved. The mind will begin to soften. The urgency will begin to leave. The constant measuring, do they care? Will they stay? Am I enough? Will begin to fade. Because the loved one does not live like a beggar. The loved one lives like someone who belongs. So let belonging be present now. Feel it. Now imagine something very small, very ordinary, and yet it implies everything. Imagine you are sitting quietly, perhaps at a table, perhaps by a window, and you receive a simple message. It is not dramatic. It is not pleading. It is not confusing. It is clear. The message says something like, thinking of you, I love you, or I miss you. I'm grateful for you. Or I'm here. I choose you. See the words briefly, then feel what they do to you. Feel the warmth that spreads. Feel the shoulders loosen. Feel the chest open. Feel the smile that comes without effort. Now, instead of responding from need, respond from security. In your imagination, you answer calmly, I love you too, and feel how natural it is. Not frantic, not clinging, natural. Repeat this small exchange if you like. Again and again. Let it become familiar. Let it feel inevitable. Now let the scene widen just a little, not into a long story, but into a quiet future that feels like home. Imagine yourself moving through your days with a gentle confidence. You wake up with peace. You walk through your home with lightness. You meet people with ease. You do not carry the old hunger. You are not scanning the world for proof of your worth. You feel loved, and that feeling becomes your foundation. This foundation changes everything, because when you feel loved, you choose differently. You speak differently. You expect differently. You stop accepting crumbs. You stop accepting disrespect. You stop accepting confusion as a form of connection. You become the kind of person who naturally receives love, because you no longer doubt that love belongs to you. And because the world is a mirror, it must begin to reflect that. Now I want you to bring the focus back to the night, back to this moment. The greatest power of this work is that you can fall asleep in this state. You can let sleep carry the feeling of being deeply loved into the subconscious. And what you feel as you fall asleep becomes law. If you fall asleep feeling lonely, you plant loneliness. If you fall asleep feeling rejected, you plant rejection. But if you fall asleep feeling loved, securely loved, then you plant love. You plant the state, and the state must externalize. So let your final mood tonight be love. Not love as effort, not love as performance, but love as safety. Now speak to yourself inwardly, as softly as a lullaby. I am deeply loved, and then do not repeat it like a chant. Let it sink, let it become a feeling. Let the words disappear, and let the warmth remain. If it helps, imagine a gentle hand on your shoulder, not demanding anything from you. Just present, just steady, just kind. Imagine that you are being looked at with tenderness, not evaluated, not measured, not judged, simply cherished. Feel what it does to you. Now allow your breath to become the breath of someone who is loved. Slow, soft, unhurried. Allow your body to become heavy, as though it no longer needs to stay alert, because the loved one does not need to be on guard. If sleep comes now, let it come. Let it take you while you are still in this warmth. That is the secret. That is the planting. The subconscious will receive the feeling, and it will begin its faithful work. And if you remain awake, continue gently. Return to the embrace. Return to the voice. Return to the message. Return to the warmth. Again and again, until it feels like home. Now I will speak one last time directly to the subconscious, slowly and kindly, as though speaking to a sleeping child. Subconscious mind, you accept now the feeling of being deeply loved. You accept safety. You accept belonging. You accept tenderness. You accept being chosen. You accept being cherished. You accept that love is natural. You accept that love is your portion. You accept that the one who is loved is who you are. And as you accept, you begin to shape the world to match. You begin to arrange the bridge of incidents. You begin to draw into experience the people, the conversations, the opportunities for love to appear in visible form. You begin to reflect the inner state outward. Now rest. Let the warmth remain. Let the breath slow. Let the heart soften. And if you drift into sleep as the one who is deeply loved. My friends, as you drift now, whether into sleep or into a quieter stillness, remember that nothing has been forced tonight. You have only entered a state, and the state will do what states always do, it will externalize. Let your final feeling be simple and soft. Let it be the quiet knowing that you are held, that you are guided, that what you have accepted within is already moving in the unseen. You do not need to supervise it. You do not need to hurry it. You only need to rest. Sleep now, if sleep is coming. And if you awaken in the night, return gently to the same feeling. Already done, already loved, already safe. For what you feel as you fall asleep becomes law. Good night, my friends.